Yeah, it's probably for the safe thing though, Gio, to make sure that you are carrying your passport around. You never know.
That's incredible. Okay, so I was telling Prue this story. I'm not gonna, of course, reveal the name of the store or the city or the state. But when I was with my girlfriend, I went to this Hispanic store in her city that has this, like, one of these little grill deals in front to get some tortillas. And so, like, I went to get some chorizo to cook after, right? Because I love chorizo. And my girlfriend's like, why didn't you bring your passport just in case? I'm like, you kidding me? And then she looks up this place on Facebook. She follows it, and they had to, like, warn their customers, of course, in Spanish, right? They had to, like, warn their customers, because my girlfriend can speak fluent Spanish. So they, like, warned their customers in Spanish. There's no ICE agents. We have heard of nobody that got deported. Please still come and buy various Mexican and South American ingredients and goods at the store. They had to, like, warn their patrons. They had to, like, do a PSA where they're like, don't worry about it. There's ICE agents are not stocking the front of the store till
Yet.
It was so good, though. It was so good. She's like, "You better bring your passport just in case." I'm like, "Yeah, they're gonna deport the lead. They're not gonna deport the El Salvadoran who can barely speak English. Report that stuff. No, bro, no. I still want my chorizo. No."
But now that we have the recipes.
Yeah, we got the recipes.
Now that we have the recipes.
Italian sauce. I mean, it is. They have a different, like, I think they have different seasoning. But it's similar to Italian sausage, but it's got, I don't know, chorizo's got that, like, particular kick to it. I like it. I don't know why. But we serve it at Trump Tower, like the taco bowl. Remember the taco bowl? Do you remember?
I remember the tweet.
2016.
Yes,
Like, really.
I do. It's like I think it was a Cinco de Mayo tweet, is what it was.
Oh yeah, Rachel's hosting a virtual salon tomorrow.
Who?
I don't know if,
Haywire? Oh, okay.
No, she's Mike. No, tree surgeon. Of course, a lot of people in America speak fluent Spanish. My girlfriend speaks.
This is not going well for you, because I know you've posted her in your Discord for patrons or whatever to prove that that she's real, and B, that she's white, but, like, not doing too good here, buddy.
Yeah, I know, but, like, she speaks fluent Spanish, Gaelic, Latin, some ancient Greek. She's white. She's okay. She's got a little bit of Italian, a little bit of Swedish, but she's almost 100%.
Oh, well, she's definitely had a little Italian in her.
Oh yeah. Have a little Italian. Oh my god. But no, she's white. A lot of people, like, Prue, don't you know a little bit of Spanish too?
I do. I know a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of Greek, English, a little bit of German.
Well, you lived in El Paso at one point, right?
Yes.
I mean, you basically have to know Spanish to live in
Texas.
You
really do.
You know what I love? She sounds authentic. You know what I love? I always make this joke with her. Do you remember the one episode where of King of the Hill where Hank, he caught Bobby and Joseph smoking?
Yeah.
He, like, remember, he's like, "Are you in? Is this stall occupied? Uno en occupato?" It's like he's trying to do. It's like Peggy Hill Spanish.
Yeah.
That's so great. No, but it's true, man. Like, a lot of people, like, to even just get around in a lot of places in Texas, apparently you have to like speak some, at least have a working knowledge of Spanish. Like, my mother can speak fluent Spanish, but that's because she, like, she can speak fluent Portuguese, Italian, and you know what I mean? So it's very similar. But yeah, of course, my mother, her first language was Portuguese, obviously. So, oh my God, Philip Daniels is gonna keep ragging me forever. the Levantine connection.
This is why you have to be very careful about what you say on the internet.
Yeah. Listen, Philip, I'm only half Calabrese, and it comes predominantly from the Greek side of Calabria because my mother's maiden name is Greek, and I have Greek facial features, and my father is Marchigiano, so that's Central Italian.
Just look at Gio when he face posts. Like, don't you just look at it and don't you just think of Gio Scotti? Don't you just think of Greek? I'll let the viewer understand. I'll let the viewer.
How did I get Reddish hair? I'm not like those Sicilians, I'm not like a swarthy. I am kind of swarthy.
I wouldn't go that far.
I wouldn't go that far. I do have a lot of body hair, but
wouldn't go that far, folks. Wouldn't go that far.
Your Greek name 10 dips. Tzatziki, jalapeno tzatziki.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh.
I love the way they mix the Greek yogurt with the honey and they dip it in the calico sausage. I don't know why, but it works. Like as Italian, I never thought sweet and sausage could ever work. But sort of like when Dylan was doing the Bannon impression, because I love when they put the paprika in the mango. I never knew it was gonna mix like that, but it's good. Anyways, this is. Oh, you should do that, Prude. This is your episode.
It sure is, but thankfully tonight, 2-ton wonton from Saskatchewan co-host. We are here. It is episode 116 of the Digital Archipelago, everybody. Welcome to another Friday night. Hopefully this is the last of our Friday night streams for a while. I think we'll be going back on Tuesday to our normal schedule once Gio decides to get out of my country and back into the Great White North. And once that happens,
I am in Canada. Wink, wink.
Get out of my country.
Prude, I can't. I am not working in America. Pure pleasure. I am in Canada for all intents and purposes.
I'm literally calling Tom Homan on my phone.
Remember, listen, if anyone at the border is listening to this, Prude is getting all the super chats today, so I'm technically not working in America.
That's right. He's not collecting any paychecks. He is not putting some other neat streamer out of work in America. He is not. He's doing the jobs that Americans won't want. Is that link real? Yes. I'm so glad that somebody asked. So somehow, because Tucker Carlson is one desperate bastard, I am sponsored by Alp nicotine pouches. So if you use the little lovely link that's on screen below, I will get 10% of that. So thank you very much. It's a very real link, by the way. Enjoy. Have fun with that. But
get 10% of all sales. Listen to this, guys. Listen, I couldn't believe this. This is like blow your head off. You get for $25 American, you get 3 cans, 20 pouches each, 9 milligrams. That's insane. I mean, that would blow your head off. 9 milligrams of nicotine. That's insane.
Oh, actually, I stand corrected. Like it's a 5-pack, not a 3-pack. It's a 5-pack. Here, let me just go.
5-pack?
Let me go share screen while we're here. Warning, however, this product does contain nicotine. But there you go. There you go. I wasn't gonna do the shilling this early, but there you go. Here we are. Here we are. And this is coming from someone who smokes pipe tobacco, but enjoy, kids. Enjoy.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine's an addictive substance. We have to say that.
And it's known in the state of California to cause cancer, but also the state of California causes cancer, period.
State of California causes AIDS, period. But
no, that's so true. I wonder how that's going to go now that we've canceled PEPFAR.
Oh, boy. You know what's so funny? I shouldn't say it, but like
that whole federal grant spending freeze sent like everyone I knew in my work area into an absolute panic. They were like, "Oh shit, we're gonna get fired." And then all the state, like in the city governments that we work with, were like, "Hey man, like, are we still gonna get our money?" And it's just like, "That's a great question, there, Haas."
That's a great question.
But so far, we have not been affected by it because we don't do anything particularly bad.
I think he had to rescind the DEI thing because they have to like.
Well, they rescinded the memorandum, but the executive orders are still in place, and I'm pretty sure what they're going to do is just rework the memo or the order to try and make it work. Like really, I have an essay on this coming out soon because I've started. I was inspired by an Oliver Bateman essay of all people to talk about these executive orders, and he makes a pretty convincing case that some of these EOs are written partially by GPT or some large language learning model.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of game theory that goes into that. So I'm going to hopefully have that out soon. This week.
I wanted to mess around with ChatGPT. Apparently,
I think you can definitely. I mean, you can. I mean, so the problem with a lot of or I'm sure I don't know how much anymore, but there used to be a problem where if you were to tell it to write an opinion or to make it like a brief, it would cite cases that don't exist. So, but I imagine it's probably easier with an executive order if you wanted to draft something. But I could be wrong. But I wanted to take Bateman's article and I kind of wanted to like game it out, what that would look like. So we'll have something out soon.
No, but I wanted to screw around with it. I think like you could do productive things with it. Like I remember Schwab talking about how you could like summarize a whole ton of articles on what, like, I mean, Kat did that for show notes a few times where she was reading a bunch of these online essays about online sociology, and she's like, okay, summarize them and put them in format, and then like from there you can generate different key points. But it's funny, Kunki had this great tweet where he said like for years and years it was a hallmark of leftist thought, especially like the sort of like Noam Chomsky anti-globalization, back when Democracy Now! Actually used to be anti-globalization, where they would say that foreign aid was essentially just a scheme for Western governments to either buy influence from dictators or to essentially oppress other nations through debt and through like things like money for oil. But now they flip the switch and they're like, actually, did you know that foreign aid was preventing, total, by AIDS? It's like, like you can't have it both ways. Either foreign aid is a scam.
Well, it's one of those like Africa Dio moments where it's just like, well, the reason why it's so bad is because they purposefully engage in the act of dry sex to create, like causing tissue tearing and thus like, spread all sorts of diseases and problems.
But it is weird how like they live longer in Africa with AIDS. But they say like there's a different strain, although there's also like studies to indicate that Africa has a lot of wasting diseases that we don't know about. So I think they just, to get funding, they would just like include everything as quote unquote HIV. But I mean, I don't know. That's speculation. I don't want to like, again, warning for YouTube. This is pure speculation. We're not giving medical or scientific advice. We're just like, reiterating the Saliforum thread. But it is strange though, like how the politics of AIDS in Africa manifests quite differently than the politics of AIDS in North America and in Europe from the 80s onwards. Like there's a marked difference because it is tied with foreign aid and geopolitics in a lot of these regions. So, but they're like, foreign aid has been such a disastrous thing. If you actually read the book by, I think the guy is African himself, I think it's called Against Foreign Aid, how it essentially destroys local food production and local economies. And it's essentially just buying off dictators and doing all sorts of nefarious things. Because why is it that even grain subsidies alone to the African continent, why is it that there's still famines or risks of famines in places like Chad, Darfur, elsewhere? It doesn't really make sense how there can even be famine in the world nowadays. But when you discover that it's not really the sort of like what the leftoids make it out to be, where it's like this, I mean, it half is like in terms of it being like an oppressive superstructure, right? But it's more of the allocation on the ground. A lot of Western nations simply don't have the resources to police the allocation of food aid. That's just a fact. Unless you want to go like total colonialism again. Oh, well, that's racist. We can't do that. We can't do that. So it's like, do you want to help those people? Do you want them to like, have total African life? Or is it that like, any idea of like the Westerners having a form of paternalism towards other peoples of the world, that's evil, that's racist, that's beyond the pale? It's like, take your fucking pick. Sorry, but this really angers me. You know what I mean? Like, and we're not even getting the Kevin Gallagher stuff that's really angering me as a Catholic. But the politics of 488 is very fascinating. It's just that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting books on this.
Yeah.
Like, there's a 2008 book. I want to say his name is Roger Riddell, and I only remember this because it reminds me of Roger Goodell from the NFL. But he wrote a book called "Does Foreign Aid Really Work?" And it's basically just like a really detailed longitudinal study into U.S. foreign aid and how it's a really ugly mixed bag.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you want a more progressive take, Jessica Darden wrote a book, I want to say like 6-7 years ago, called Aiding and Abetting U.S. Foreign Assistance. And
was that from Varso?
Oh God, I don't remember where this one's from. No, she's at it's from American University.
No, not much difference between that and Varso.
No, yeah. But I mean, it's published by Stanford University Press. But basically, just like it's a much more progressive look at it. That American aid has always been tied with a lot of anti-colonial dictatorial violence throughout the decades, especially in the Cold War and even up until today. And it's I've read excerpts from it. It's not a bad book. There's a lot of great citations. That's what I like about these sort of history texts, is that there's just mountains upon mountains of citations that you can go to and read the direct sources yourself. But I mean, so I think that you need to seriously reconsider foreign assistance anyway. And again, it's like what we talked about last week. Some of this really does feel like it's kind of like a buyout. Like, listen, man, we'll cut this back. We'll reduce some spending here and there, and we're going to let you guys run wild with it.
Yeah, you could essentially do whatever you want. Like, it's
like a leveraged buyout of USG.
But the thing is,
whatever works, right? Remember, the State Department's travel website at travel.state.gov literally dropped the T, and now it's just LGB travelers.
Wow, that's like gays against grooming.
Yeah, literally gays against groomers won. Congratulations, you queers. The T has been dropped.
No, but what's funny is that
J.K. Rowling can resume her role as a massive feminist. Well done.
Oh my God. Gio frantically ordering DoorDash before the Canadian dollar collapses. Oh, I will not lower myself to ordering DoorDash and those outrageous prices.
He won't do DoorDash. He's great. He won't do that.
But
why would he invite an Indian man to his house?
Well, some Filipinos do it in where I live, but foreign aid for a long time in the 70s and 80s was essentially to facilitate various post-colonial actions, and a lot of it was this sort of like weirdo bidding war between the U.S. and the USSR, and people don't talk about that because they think that, especially when you go to school for poli-sci or whatever in undergrad, and you research a little bit of this, there's a lot of like the save the world types who I think like back in the day was a bit, they had more pure intentions, although nowadays they're just like rootless libtards. But back in the day, you had this sort of like save the world types where it's like, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be an envoy to the UN, and I want to help people. But then they realize that like it's all just a giant scam. And people from, I think like the last real competent UN head was probably in the 70s under Nixon. Like Bujas Brujos was corrupt as hell. Kofi Annan was corrupt as hell. And it's just that because the UN has become the symbol of the global south having their sort of like weird influencer comeuppance. But in reality, it's like this total clown show. It's just it's a pastiche. It's a simulacra of what real global politics is like. And I think that a lot of these libtards that are freaking out of Trump pulling out of the world, the WHO, and if potentially pulling out of the UN, which would essentially condemn the UN because the majority of their funding comes from America. There's like this chilling effect where they're like, oh, if we pull out international institutions, then it's going to condemn the world to some ghastly totalitarian fate. But the reality is these institutions have never worked for decades. And libtards themselves in academia have pointed out very nuanced critiques of why they haven't worked. But now they're like, oh, actually, because of Trump, it's like what Nightmare Vision said last night, Alice. It's like we hate this thing, but because Trump also hates it, now we have to love it. It's like that's how it works, right? Now, listen, I'm skeptical of certain things. Like, for example, no foreign aid was cut to Israel, and I'm pretty skeptical of even foreign aid being cut in terms of military expenditures to Ukraine.
It wasn't cut to Israel or Egypt, and I mean that's also par for American diplomatic engagements with those that are backed by certain American treaties.
Israel, obviously, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean America pays out both in order to sort of keep. I mean, this is a big part of what happened in the '60s after '67. But I mean, this is a post-Nixon thing that's been going on for quite some time. I wasn't expecting that to ever get cut.
Yeah,
and for American diplomacy, that's been sort of the bipartisan establishment, quote unquote, position since the '70s to back both with foreign aid. Late '70s, I should add, late '70s.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, yeah, I always, that's never going to happen. Like, I mean, in a perfect world, maybe, but like, it's just, it's very funny how people are gasping over these institutions that are paper tigers at best and actually have destroyed immense amounts of foreign policy initiatives at worst. And there was this one tweet that went viral about how America will never recover on the world stage, its perception on the world stage. When has America ever had a good perception in the 21st century on the world stage? Like never. Since Bush? Even before with Clinton? Not that was a 21st century, but you know what I mean? Like, when has America for the past 50 years had a stellar reputation on the world stage? It's like, that's such a ridiculous talking point that Trump is this unique demon that has destroyed America's perception on the world stage. Like, that's ridiculous. That's like, why? Because you all liked Obama so much? It's like
I remember when 2003 rolled around and like every major newspaper was saying that George W. Bush had irrevocably damaged American prestige and power on the world stage.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Like that, I mean, so again, just like you want whiplash. Remember, 20 years ago, George W. Bush was like the end of Pax Americana.
Yeah.
And I mean, woke more correct than the mainstream in a lot of respects, but still.
But in some ways, you could argue that the sort of geopolitical overreach of America from at least Eisenhower onwards worked in Europe. Well, I don't know. I want to hear Thomas catching me saying that. But like, let's say when it comes to the Marshall Plan, there were various schemes that were put forth in Europe that tended to more or less work in terms of the brick and mortar, guns and butter metric of economics. But when you apply it to these other nations and these other civilizations, there isn't a universal model for aid or development that can really work. Now, when I was in school, this is back, I was in high school. My first year of university was in 2011. So this must have been 2009 to 2010 when I was in grade 12. And there was a bunch of these these political classes I was taking. The big thing that everyone was writing about back then, Prude, what was the big scheme that everybody loved, that was going to save the world, was going to save Africa? What was the thing that they loved talking about?
Wasn't it like micro credit
financing?
Loans? No, yeah, micro loans or something like that. It had a really specific term. I think it was just called micro credit financing or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, micro credit financing. That was going to save the world because it was applied at the local level. It was going to be meted out on a case-by-case basis. It was going to encourage development in these countries. It was going to do everything for everyone. But when you apply that to the actual political history, this is something that my good mutual measured head, Ray, said recently. He's like, people are mystified by African politics because you literally have to almost venture into long histories of geopolitics, tribal politics, even mysticism to come up with a coherent answer as to why certain nations in Africa are the way they are. Now, it turns out that those microloans were actually still being run by multinational cadres that were working part and parcel in the UN. And a lot of those projects didn't go anywhere, because it was essentially just a buying scheme. And so, in theory, microloans could have worked. It was going to avoid all of the extringencies of African politics, but it just didn't. It just didn't. And all those people, the Save the World types that I went to school with, that all went to poli-sci, whatever, as I did. But I wasn't a Save the World type. It's like, by the time you got to like the 2010s, all of that sort of optimism for it just petered out. Like nobody talks about microloans anymore. It's like not possible. Or they would talk about how the smartphone proliferation in places like Asia and Africa, how they were going to like expand global communication. When in reality, that also became a scheme when it came to phone cards that they would import from China and they would sell it at an exorbitant rate. And so like the phone card thing became a scheme. Like nobody remembers this because nobody gives a shit about Africa. But like to really understand why these libtards are freaking out now, you have to go through these policies of what did not work and consistently did not work geopolitically. And so now they're going to turn around and say that if Trump cuts our heckin' wholesome chungus funding, that it's all going to fall to shit and you're going to have millions of Africans dead. Like, come on. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Anyways, I could go on forever. But...
Well, I think that's a really important thing to consider, though, Gio, because when I was in college, I'm a few years younger than you. I really do remember the big push being like microcredit finance. There was this like almost like a startup like hype to it, microcredit finance is going to be the way to do it. We're going to export the vermiculture stuff that Cuba does, and we're going to bring this to parts of Africa, and we're going to bring this parts of the United States. We're going to have like new renewable organic agriculture. We're going to find a way, and this was all tied to in the Obama administration specifically, because I remember people like Samantha Power giving these lectures and these talks about what she called feminist foreign policy. And it was this argumentation where like, actually, if we use things like microcredit financing, cell phone access, and access to things like reproductive health, women's education, etc., like we will able to successfully de-radicalize by empowering agency to women in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly the Sahel region, in order to fight against various like Islamic groups or whatever.
And abortion, by the way.
Oh, and that too, right? Which, I mean, Margaret Sanger in foreign policy, Bill Clinton's happy about it. But I mean, regardless of that, the point too was like there was this very strong, like it was like the last bit of like neoliberal optimism that like we can empower and we can engage and we can get people connected to the marketplace, and then all of a sudden you too could have your own little like financial empire and microphone and power at the stand, and through your own business and through your own self-sufficiency, you wouldn't have to pay for protection money, and you wouldn't lose your sons to the allure of increasing bride price and inflation of women. So all of a sudden, they don't have to join a radical terrorist organization in order to do that. And what the long turnabout is fair play, because you want to know where all this rhetoric gets used now? Domestically.
Oh my God.
All of this shit gets used domestically, because things about like bride price and Boko Haram and feminist foreign policy, you read this shit from like 2012 to 2015, and you read the literature about it, and then you compare to how they talk about things like incel terrorism, the manosphere, men in general in the United States. You're like, holy shit, it's the same talking point.
Same thing. Yeah.
I mean, Red Hawk and I talked about this last year, but it's just like, wow, like the language is not at all different. Like foreign policy begins at home, and it's like, yeah, Richard Haas, we know that, but in this instance, our own like progressive ideology has come home to roost, as the crisis of like the gender discourse has only radicalized a whole subset of the population, and now they're using anti-terrorist models in order to track people here who are disaffected and disenfranchised at home. And so it's like, wow, it's the Saturn eating his own son, except it's like neoliberalism eating its own ideology and trying to kill its own children.
You know what's so funny about what T-Swan said? Not funny, it's terrible. But we feminists have to give birth control to these poor non-white women 10 years later. Oh my God, I can't believe evil chuds tried to genocide these non-white women with birth control. I remember, now listen, I think it was also terrible, but in the context of what I was writing about, it didn't make a lot of sense. This was years ago. This was before Clownvid. This was, I believe, in 2019, when they had the Abortion is Normal gallery that was sponsored by a lot of these big feminist artists like Cindy Sherman and Marilyn Minter. And they had this one exhibit I remember that was from a from a Puerto Rican woman talking about the forced sterilization program in the early 20th century in Puerto Rico towards Puerto Rican women. Now that's terrible and it's disgusting, but I remember critiquing it as this very overt control over women's reproduction, but it's in a gallery that's also celebrating similar practices of forced abortion and forced birth control and so forth. So it's like, I understand like from a choice feminist perspective, right? But it to me at the time, it didn't really make sense in terms of protesting this massive overreach of women's health but also basically having works of art that celebrate it as a literal sacrament. If you go to my WordPress archive, it's still there. Just go to major PDFs. It's the Abortion is Normal gallery review. I believe I call it Bodily Profanations. That was the title of it. So it's like you're worshiping it. You literally have a tapestry in the gallery that greets people. It was at the Arsenal Gallery in New York. That literally greets people with like this collie-like figure that has like a little aborted children around her waist with a sword and like men's heads and all that. And it's like, but yet at the same time, it's like the control of women's reproduction in the third world. That is also not that I agree. Again, of course, I'm not agreeing with any forced sterilization or whatever, obviously. But to me, it was really dissonant in terms of a lot of like these contemporary leftist shibboleths. It's like, you know what I mean? I guess you can extend to like nowadays the political right talks about population control or whatever, but it just, to me at the time, it's like, okay, you're celebrating it, but you're not, you know what I mean? Like there's a dissonance there, right? I guess I would say, well, it's because of free choice or whatever, but at the same time, the way you're framing it as a sort of sacrificial ritual, literally through the work of art. And you're bringing in a lot of mythological motifs from Samaria and from Babylon. Like it's all there. If you go read my article, it's like 70 pages long. But at the same time, it's like, you're still talking about Western white colonialism, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the same thing with any geopolitical element when it comes to that sort of Samantha Powers feminist foreign policy, right? Like, yeah, I mean, could you make an argument that in certain Islamic countries, women having a degree more autonomy obviously would lead to different outcomes? Yeah, of course. But like at the same time, not that I would argue against that, but I'm just saying, as a wholesome Chungus women respecter. But I think that intervening in the gender politics of other nations was so taboo up until the 21st century. To the political left, by the way. There was this sort of thesis of exoticism and third worldism that didn't really want to morally preach against certain engendered practices. But now that like Western leftoids have become more myopic and more even quote unquote Eurocentric themselves, it's like they don't really care about it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there was this weird attempt during the Obama years to, like you were saying, equate radical Islam with like people on the political right in North America and in Europe, even though when you really think about it, radical Islam is equally our civilizational enemy, especially in Europe.
Correct.
So it's like they don't really have a good grasp on like what we actually believe. Because remember, like there was this like weird attempt to be like, well, they're oppressing women there, they want to oppress women here. And it's like, well, the thesis does not really translate into any sort of viable politics. The only way it does translate into a viable politics is if you actually just wanted to oppress the chuds here. And you really didn't give a shit about radical Islam in either Africa, Asia, and in the Middle East. It really was always just to bring it home. That's really all it was. And, well, apart from other things when it comes to foreign policy in the Middle East, that's another bugaboo. But the whole thing about exoticism and third worldism, like, that's all out the window now. That's all out the window. It's actually, this is what I said. I actually quoted, I think, Night Revision, where there will be, because of Trump's isolationism and nativism, there will be a neoliberal turn among the political left. You will have people like Hassan Piker that will basically say the same shit that the little guy Epstein says about how we need more intervention, we need more neoliberalism, we need more IMF loans. That's
he's the only one who needs an intervention right now because he's dressed up like a fucking maid.
Yeah. I mean, Destiny definitely needs legal intervention if you follow the latest drama.
Oh well, he's gonna need to. He's gonna need a really good lawyer because I imagine that any DA is gonna throw the book at him, just be like, "Wow, predatory leftist streamer cock revenge porn sounds like you need to be hoisted on your own petard and go from there."
Admitting it in DM in Discord leaks, admitting it that you paid off different women, bro. Like, not even like, okay, I shouldn't say that. Nick Rekieta is actually terrible at this, but like, it's like,
your progressive role model for straight men, sir.
It's like what Kino Casino said. If you like read those Discord leaks from Destiny, they sound like Ethan Ralph talking about Alice. It's like, I paid her off, bitch. What you gonna do about it? You know? Yeah, I paid her off. She was being a bitch about it. Like, yeah, exactly.
I think you just enjoy doing an Ethan Ralph impression. I don't think you're that attached to the drama. I think you just like doing the impression.
Yeah, true. I can't do a Destiny. Nick Rekieta will be his lawyer. Well, I mean, hey, man. I mean,
isn't he disbarred? Isn't he disbarred?
Yeah, he's disbarred. He
can't be his attorney.
No, really, when he
that would be entertaining though, just to be like a confederate, just a confederacy of like just lol cows. Like is defending Destiny in court, and he does like a line of coke right before entering like judges' chambers. It's just like,
oh man,
you want to understand this affirmative defense counselor? And he's just like, no, sir, I don't, Your Honor. I think that what he did was perfectly normal. He's like, you might want to fix your nose before going in there. It'd be a good time. I would watch that. I would watch that. It would be like a Netflix. It'd be like, what was it, HBO or
Netflix interviewed Nikki Rackets. Yeah, Netflix.
Oh yeah, well then let it happen. Let it be. Let it be.
No, Philip, he was legit suspended. Like his license is gone. It's over. Because he has technically been charged. Apparently, the DA in Minnesota, because Minnesota does have a libtarded DA. They are basically just throwing kid gloves at him. He's not going to serve any jail time. Maybe the body cam footage will come out, which will be the ultimate humiliation, the omni-feltoning of Nikki Rackets. But he's also in a legal battle with Montegraph and with Aaron M. Holte. So he's fucked either way. Although I would have liked it if he went to jail, honestly. Because unlike Ethan Ralph, where you could say like there's some kind of entertainment there's something so inherently disgusting about Nick Rekieta that I just can't abide by. And it's actually quite funny seeing Ralph. Well, not funny, because he actually has ruined the lives of a lot of people. But I'm just saying, like, something about Nick Rekieta and Epstein is so viscerally disgusting to me. I don't know. It's just, anyways. So anyway, like, to reiterate, I'm not advocating for forced sterilization, obviously. I'm just saying that in the context of the work of art, by worshiping abortion as a sacrament, I just felt like it was so dissonant. Because the reason I felt it was dissonant, because it was that Puerto Rican artist was highlighting the very disgusting and gritty reality of abortion becoming an object of foreign policy and colonialism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're trying to mask it by saying it's this wonderful, beautiful thing that should not be infringed. And it's just like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I like Nick Rekieta's wife. Well, Kayla was all right. I think Kayla is just, I don't know. I think Kayla's a victim of his bullshit, in my opinion. I think he fed her drugs, and they were both kind of swinging, and they were both into it. Then he fucked off with that April and Holte chick, and it's just, I really feel sorry for his kids, and I feel a little bit sorry.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah, don't do drugs.
drugs.
Don't go to swinger parties and in Jamaica. Anyways,
You'll catch something, man.
He literally, he talked. Nick Rekieta talked about a BBC doing his wife in front of him while he was in the cuck chair, and how him and Aaron M. Holte would swap wives, and they would do other things together that I cannot mention on air. But he reminds me of Onision. Yeah, Onision had his own like polycule Keith Renier cult, you know what I mean? Although I will say that, I'm not condoning Keith Renier, but apparently the allegations that he was doing underage chicks was false. He was still a terrible sex cult leader that was exploiting women, but he wasn't like a PDF file, you know what I mean? But not that I'm a fan of Keith Renier, although I do think that I'm not going to mention the Amarnite Keith Renier posting. I'm not going to mention that, but anyways, let's move on. So,
feeling better there, Gio?
Yeah, we got the drama out of the way.
You got to get it out of your system. You got to do your weekly purge.
Now I don't care for psychoanalysis, Vingal.
You're like a bulimic. You're just like, I just got to get this out of me. I got I just got
gonna binge, gonna purge.
Gonna binge, gonna purge. Gotta binge, gotta purge until I've got that sweet drama body ready to go.
But you know what's so funny about
ready for my Kino Casino appearance?
Gio, what? Rackets is that like he brought it on himself in terms of Montegraph because he fucked up Montegraph's legal case, and then he like just accused him of being a PDF file with no evidence. And so of course Montegraph's going to sue you for $200,000 he spent so far to fight it in court. And it's like, just what are you doing, man? Is it because you're a fucking Nepo baby and your parents are going to bail you out no matter what? It's
so
like,
true.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on, Prude.
I think that the gender stuff is a good time to go to the main feature of tonight's episode. So our friend Volpez, who's been on the show as a guest, who has been on our respective programs ourselves, he wrote this Substack, and keep in mind he is from the continent and English second language. But I think that it's interesting every time I get a European or an outside perspective on some of our own internal culture war stuff. So let me go share screen, and we will get right to it.
He's from the other post-national country.
Yes. Belgium. So here we go. Let me go zoom in real quick on this. I also have the link in the description, so if you want to read it yourself and take the time. I don't know how long we'll go through all of it, but we're going to get through a good chunk of it. So this is called The Borders of Gender. LGBTIQ is like a spider's web, which, if one is not entangled in it, can be torn with a wave of a hand. However, if one does get entangled in it, it will never escape it alive. Udeketched. So we'll just get started. Gender ideology is in every part of our society. We can't escape it. Everyone knows someone who was ensnared and utterly destroyed by its vile grip. To combat against this, many on the right have tried to make sense of this ideology. The recent victory of Trump has made some dream that we now have seen the beginning of gender ideology's end, but I don't think that this is the case. Gender ideology is more dangerous and more subtle than it is often credited for. It's not just some scatterbrained idea by a few kooky academics, and has a strong theoretical framework. If we want to permanently extinguish, then an attempt to answer it must be made. This essay chiefly examines how the left problematizes and undermines borders. To understand this attack is important, but it stems from a wider problem, the crisis of borders. This crisis is at the heart of the wrongness with the world and demands a response. The following essays in this series will give an angle to approach this crisis.
Yeah, I thought the essay was just going to be like women bashing, but it wasn't.
Oh, no. This was far more of a framework. This wasn't just women bashing.
Yeah.
I think Volpez is a little bit smarter than that. So the breaking of the border, breaking the glass ceiling. LGBTIQ, sorry. IQ. Ideology specializes in preying on the ambiguity of borders. In fact, the destruction of borders is its essence. This is what the LGBTIQ stands for, first and foremost. The rejection that borders have positive function. Borders are, in the view of the New Left, evil personified, and their abolition is the goal of any action they take. DEI and anti-racism are two of the more obvious instances of this ideology. But by looking around, it is not hard to see this issue, saying, like, be hecking yourself or pushing boundaries. It is strongly represented in the socially accepted idea that any norm has to be questioned, if not broken. Transgressions against borders are seen as just and necessary. I would agree so far.
Yeah.
In response to this, the right has a tendency to try and strongly reaffirm existing borders. The attempt to ban gender and return to biological sex is one of them. But the general call for border control you hear from nationalists all around the world comes from the same impulse. The same is true for the Christian right's attempts to reaffirm marriage. However, these attempts are reactionary in the most derogatory sense. The New Left exploits a real problem that exists with borders. You don't defeat them by unthinkingly trying to reaffirm the old borders. This approach fails to take into account what borders are, and so remains blind. Do you want to read?
Featherless iPad.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's all about borders. That's the whole thing. Before we can start to comprehend the problem of the border, the question of what is a border becomes necessary to answer. A provisional definition might sound, a border is the thing that separates two entities from each other. Two clear examples that give strength to this definition are walls and definitions themselves. A wall separates two plots of land from each other. Without the wall, would be difficult and often impossible to determine where the one plot of land ends and a second one begins. With this, one characteristic of borders comes clearly into view. Borders create order in space. Definitions limit the reach of a concept. Well, unless you're Jacques Derrida, they don't. But anyways, they they try to tell what something is and what inversely determine what is not. Definitions find their purest form in the name. Giving something a name. So again, this goes back to Confucius, by the way, when Confucius meant that the beginning of wisdom is, quote, the rectification of names, to name things properly. Of course, it was in the context of things like various Chinese wisdom traditions. Then you could extend it also to Chan Buddhism and also basic Confucian principles and so forth. But anyways, definitions find their purest form in the name. Giving something a name reaffirms that it is a unity and separate from all else. It is a hesiody. It is differentiated. In this, a second characteristic of borders reveals itself. Borders determine what something is. The two examples together with the definition gives us a better understanding of what a border is, but this raises up two interesting questions. Number one, what draws the border, or who draws the border? And two, where do you draw the border? These two questions and the problems that they imply are used by the New Left to declare borders as unjust, as evil that must be abolished.
Tracking so far?
Yep. Kierkegaard in the Pyrenees, yeah. Every border has to be drawn by someone, or at the very least recognized by someone as a border. This fact is something that the right often tends to forget. There is a strong tendency to see existing borders as a given and thus as something eternal, which, I mean, yeah, that is the transhistorical nature of a lot of right-wing ideology. It abstracts the border away from the conditions that made it necessary to draw it in the first place. For example, if the population of a city expands and settles beyond the wall, the existence of the wall comes into question. A new wall has to be built, and the expansion has to be cut off from the city. The establishment of a border depends on a decision. This is very, Schmittian language. This might make it seem that the borders are arbitrary in a way that they are, but not every place is equally suitable for a border. To give an example from our own world, it makes sense that France has its border with Spain in the Pyrenees. To push the border beyond would make it require far more resources to maintain. Allowing Spain possessions beyond the mountain would give them a possible foothold for the conquest of France, and is thus intolerable. And so it is natural for the border to settle there. However, France still has to maintain that border because if it doesn't, she is open for conquest. Well, maybe not nowadays, but maybe in a future post-apocalyptic world, maybe the Europeans will start conquering each other again. Who knows? Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. Brussels. Before we go further, it is important to take a moment to consider the aspect of decision. Every border has to be decided, and it is therefore only natural that people following an ideology that sees all borders as inherently problematic and evil are very hesitant to allow new borders to be established. This unwillingness to lay down borders is an existential threat. It is a crisis of the political. To paraphrase the German jurist Carl Schmitt, the essence of the political is the distinction between friend and enemy. The destruction of borders paralyzes us and makes us unwilling to identify enemies. This is the ultimate crisis of borders. In a real sense, the distinction between friend and enemy is both the most fundamental border there is, at the same time it is the most concrete. Fundamental because it clears away all ambiguities. Friends get protected and enemies get shot. There is no middle ground to hide behind. It is concrete because you feel it existentially. If the enemy appears in front of your eyes, you have to fight him off or he kills you. It forcefully reorients your world. War now appears to us as an essential way to establish and reestablish borders. By doing this, every war brings about spatial reorientation.
And remember what Foucault said. What did he say about Clausewitz? What did Clausewitz say? The politics is war, or
the continuation of political intercourse by other means.
Yeah, Foucault reversed that. War is a continuation of politics by another means. I think that was the reversal, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that there's always a war for a discursive truth. War is a foundation. Struggle is a foundation for the sort of existence of a new body of knowledge and an existence of a politicized view of these new bodies of knowledge. So we're always at war no matter what. I mean, you can frame it in different ways, but that basic nature of struggle is always there. It's omnipresent. It's just that the sort of like, even Trump when he was in there, right? Like, executive orders, we got a crisis of fentanyl, a crisis on the border. Obama had a crisis of racism or whatever. You know what I mean? Like the framework of it is always in the language of a state of exception, and all states of exception in some ways, from actual wartime all the way up to clownvid, is a war for something. You know what I mean? Like, remember Mussolini had the war for grain? The war for bread. Well, that was
the war against sparrows, Mao.
Yeah, Mao had the war against sparrows. Yeah, exactly. Now we have the war against racism, the war against clownvid. Like, it's the same model all over and over and over again. So, anyways, move on. Let's move on.
Fundamental because it clears away all... Oh, wait, hold on. I just read that. War has become something inherently evil, and to start a war is a crime in the eyes of the world. Borders are frozen in time, and to change them now is forbidden. This builds pressures within countries, and yet does not allow them to reposition when the conditions that made those borders appear change. At the same time, enforcing external borders has become immoral. This is the center of the crisis the European Union is facing. It established free movement between her member states, a good thing, but she refuses to establish a real outer border. With the migrant crisis as a result, a closely related problem is the reckless expansion of the European Union. In doing so, it shows no consideration for the borders and what they imply. Not every country fits within Europe, but to say that one needs to define what Europe is and what it means to be European, to lay a border is also to determine who is in and who is out.
And of course, being from Belgium, I believe he's from the Flemish part of Belgium.
Yes.
This has always been a contention of like, what is quote unquote the real Belgium? Is it French Belgium? Is it Flemish Belgium? Is it, so yeah. And of course, Brussels too, you know what I mean? Like that's yeah.
So here you go.
Extremely pop. Oh boy.
Redacted in Minecraft.
Redacted in Minecraft. Oh my god. The New Left jumps at this double arbitrariness. It first problematizes the who. This lays the foundation of both standpoint epistemology and intersectionality. When a feminist is screeching destroy the patriarchy, she means that she wants to destroy the world where it is men making the decision of where the border should be and replace it with a cabal of neurotic women. This side of the attack rests on the question of pure power. He who rules, decides, and is easily solved by ruthless suppression. I was going to say ruthless aggression. Anyways, never mind. That's a WWE reference right there. We make the decision, not you. This is the approach that much of the right wants to take, and it seems that the second Trump administration is taking. This, however, is not enough and leaves you open for the second attack. A wall built of bridges. The second attack is more subtle and is centered on the problem of exclusion. It has two aspects. The already mentioned difficulty of determining where to draw the border and modernity's demand for absolute borders. Three examples will make this clear. A stroll beyond the Po. A first example is the question of language. When does one language end and another begin? When a Renaissance Milanese man is traveling south, every new village and town he passes speaks somewhat differently from him. Although nowadays a lot of regional languages in Italy are disappearing, unfortunately. But he still can understand them well enough. Every mile further south, understanding becomes bit by bit more difficult, and at some point beyond the Po River, talking with the locals becomes impossible. You could argue that the point we are dealing with a different language, and it may be appropriate to draw a border there. However, people will live somewhere in between Milan and this hypothetical standpoint can understand both well enough. They would say it is absurd that you draw the border there. Another example is the problem of deciding where a historical period ends. Thousands of PhDs are written on the problem of deciding where a historical period ends. The scenario, each one viciously attacking the other's placement of the end. And usually they will make a good case as to why one endpoint is not sufficient and another might be better. A last example is the problem of conclusively defining an object. Trying to define what a chair is hard. We're right back to Plato. Oh, God. For every definition you give them will be another exception that puts your beautiful definition into question. These examples show that it is often not clear where to draw the border. There is an element of arbitrariness involved, and you will almost always cut something out that someone could make a strong case to include. The problem is that you have to draw the border somewhere. Otherwise, we can't function. Drawn borders, even bad borders, is a question of life and death. I mean, Africa, for example, they always talk about how a lot of the arbitrary borders drawn did not account tribal life and tribal lands and so on and so forth, which is true. But it's very funny because this is almost like what Sadie Plant said in that now infamous quote that rightoids like me and Julius have talked about, where it's like, going back to the amoeba and undifferentiated life, that's the ultimate act of leftism, right? The single cell splitting of the amoeba was the first act of fascism in world history. So I quite like Sadie Plant as a thinker. It's just that was a bonkers quote, you know what I mean? It makes it in my book.
But it goes hard.
Yeah, it does go hard. Yeah,
it goes hard.
Zeros and Ones is a great book, though. These examples that to put a border around something always has certain arbitrariness about it. But again, this is a classic like right-wing talking point about this sort of like postmodern problematization of borders is a foundational part of the left. But I think Volpe is, he's well aware of like the Jordan Petersonian type of, talking point. But nevertheless, the question, why can't there be drawn differently, can be asked. This question leads to the problem of exclusion. Exclusion and feeling. I'm doing the Michael Savage bit.
Yeah.
The new left uses. Oh, did you know that Michael Savage is going on Newsmax again? He's going on TV again.
Really?
Yeah. He's got Newsmax.
What year is it?
Oh man, do you remember why he got kicked off of CNN?
Vaguely.
It's because he said that like kids in the ghetto that they labeled autistic was to like for more funding for the parents or whatever. Like,
where's the lie?
Yeah, but like the way he said it was like so blunt that they're like, we gotta kick him off. Yeah, but where's the lie? And also, like, he insulted that one guy. He said, like, he had AIDS and shit. It was, I believe Common Filth has the clip on Twitter of if you go to the search bar for Common Filth, just type in Michael Savage and you'll find it. The New Left uses this problem to attack any kind of border. Modernity is especially vulnerable to this problem because it demands definitions that are crystal clear. No ambiguity is allowed. It threatens the calculability of the world. The problem of trying to define man or woman purely biologically illustrates the point well. But you know what's funny? You know what's funny about that is that in a lot of ways, like people like Stephen Hicks and Jordan Peterson, they're kind of wrong because I don't really think they've read Frederick Jameson, or maybe they have. I know Stephen Hicks has, but probably not, very well. But when you talk about, like, for example, like postmodernism and modernity complicating existence, and we're going to have like a manifold of genders and species, and we're going to relate to non-human animals, and things are becoming so confusing. It's going to be worse than Blade Runner 2049. Is it 2049?
The sequel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be like, we don't know what human is, man. But in reality, like if you actually read Postmodernism, a critique of late capitalism by Frederick Jameson, in some ways, modernity or postmodernity necessitates this like extreme, stark, black and white simplification of things. Because if you destroy the distinction between high culture and low culture, for example, or high thought and low thought, then you have this like weird thing where you have to appeal to this is a basic backbone of my book, by the way. Like you have to appeal to the masses. You have to appeal to the lowest common denominator. So for some reason, liquid modernity or hypermodernity or whatever you want to call it has necessitated a very clear, like people are just fucking tards nowadays. Like they can't handle any form of ambiguity because everything becomes a language game, or everything becomes a fucking Epstein-y debate bro tactic where you have to like always trip people up. And so therefore the only safe
you can just say Cantbot too,
Yeah, or Cantbot. Like, what is this? What is that? Like
define this, define that.
Exactly. So therefore the only safe bet is either schlock, kitsch, or lowest common denominator thought. Culture has not complexified. We do not live in real postmodernism. Jordan Peterson's wrong. Because if we did, then we would have a proliferation of all sorts of cultural baubles. But like Jameson says, no, actually, complexity will not be the name of the game. The culture industry necessitates extreme simplifications of all things. So you can't have a politics that's ambiguous. I mean, some people can. Some people like refuse to, like, such as myself. I refuse to play me and my mutuals on Twitter. We refuse to play the game. I mean, I shouldn't blow smoke on my ass, but like, when it comes
to pat yourself on the back, Gio, it's okay.
No, but you know what I mean? Like a lot of people can't tolerate ambiguity because they're always going to get tripped up on something, or they're always going to have to like, instead of doing the hard work of trying to rectify seemingly contradictory beliefs by having a bit of cleverness, intellectually. Instead, they're like, you know what? I'm just going to go for the most simplest gruel possible. And I'm going to go to a fucking debate panel, and I'm going to go to like this huge online spectacle streamer culture schlop. And it's like, you never get nothing done, because people can't handle complexity. This is something that Dean Kissick said about the art world back in the early 2000s, as opposed to nowadays. Nowadays, it's very stark, very clear. It hammers you with the ideology. Whereas for a time in the contemporary art world in the 2000s, there was all this like amazing proliferation of stuff, and you could do whatever you wanted, man. And like, you didn't have to make sense of everything. But nowadays you have to, because if you don't, you're going to suffer. So, I mean, hopefully not nowadays. I mean, hopefully, art world wokeness was defeated at the ballot box. But like, let's be real. Has it really been defeated?
No, gays against groomers allegedly won at the ballot box.
Well, there you go, right?
Like the most moderate liberal opposition is sort of what we're witnessing now. Don't get me wrong, there's room for a lot more to go further to the right.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's I still can't get over the fucking LGB thing. That's so funny.
No, but the thing is, we live in a complex world, but yet we demand simplicity from a very complex world.
Well, again, because not to go all medium is the message type deal here, but like what works? Why was it even to even reference Moldbug, to reference Yarvin, right, from 2007? Why are we talking about it in the most redundant or the most no nuance, the basically like a homeopathic
why was XP
treatment?
popular as a debate, bro?
Variety. Well, I mean, because it came down to just like word games and definitions, and it came down to like the simplicity of it. Like, you're wrong because X. I have this. I have that. But my point though, Gio, is that why is it reduced to that, and why is it acting like it's just like a small little like? Why are our politics so homeopathic, where it's these tiny micro particles that are going to somehow represent an entire ideology, an entire point, and that we assign? And I mean, it's partially about language, right? We assign words to have complex meaning or to illustrate a certain feeling, point, idea, etc. And we say it's this. Like, even to say the word conservatism or liberalism or leftism, even because we're on Twitter and because we, try to make things as punchy as possible for the purpose of retweets and eyes on us and clicks on us, you don't get to have the long form discussion anymore because you're not in a position or an environment that wants it. The key to success, whether it's on Twitter or whether it's with YouTube and all this push for short form content, and a lot of this, of course, is put down by algorithms and market interests as well, because it's good to have a dumbed down population that doesn't like long form content. But you have to be as memetically viral as possible. So, like, why is that? Like, BreadTube worked for a long reason, because you could basically take hundreds of years of complex leftist ideology, not saying it's really that complex, but still, and break it down by some retard video essayist that'll talk about it for 20 minutes. Or do it on a live stream where you engage in parasociality and then clips get made and then you go popular for your best owning moments of the cons or of the chuds for this, debate bro stream or whatever.
That's how Haas became popular.
Well, that's how Haas became popular. That's how a variety of these guys became popular. And then they tried Hassan Piker, Destiny. I mean, all of these guys, like all the little coattail hangers on, they either did that or they hopped on like the trend for like trans rights, and then they turned out. Like, all these things are about making, like, this is the bare bone. To reference Volpez's article here is the square. This is the defined parts of the border. We're not going to talk about the edges. We're not going to talk about the corners. We're not going to talk about square footage. We're not going to talk about anything. We're just going to say that this is the shape that it is. And because we can reduce it down to the smallest, the lowest common denominator, ergo, we can make our positions more viral. We can make them go out. We can make them go do things. I mean, this is why you have all these punchy phrases on the left and the right. The woke are more correct in the mainstream, like the treats discourse, where then that gets turned into like treatler and things like that. All these things get put upon there because you are already conditioned in an environment to understand hundreds of hours of lore in order for these things to even make sense to begin with. But because you already have this in there, you're linguistically reoriented to understand these are the battle lines, these are the borders, because what is a front line in combat but just a border that is constantly changing based upon territorial gain? And we're doing this linguistically, rhetorically. We're doing this in cyberspace. We're doing this all the time for the purposes of trying to create, basically, like, I hate the fact that like the troons over like the SCP world or whatever have like kind of made this their own thing, but it's just like, really, you have a memetics division and it's trying to create like a biological infokinetic weapon that's like, how can I fuck this guy up the most? And it's why the whole info hazard or do not research, as you like to jokingly say on the show, like that exists for a reason, because like sometimes maybe you don't want to know about these things. Like, I first heard about Anthony Fauci from the Sallow Forum AIDS thread, and then I saw him on TV, and then I was like, oh no, we're kind of in trouble. But like, again, there's a punchiness to it. It's like, oh, that's the AIDS guy, and now he's like one of the COVID response guys. I'm in danger, like
I'm in danger,
basically. So like, there
was this trans pronouns in the bio account that said that JD Vance, when agent Jack Poso, JD Vance is a Christian concept that you love your family, that you love your neighbor, that you love your community. We'll talk about the stupid Kevin Gallagher thread. This person at Jamie Hacker 10 says he's literally describing the Volksgemeinschaft, how do you say it? Volksgemeinschaft. Volksgemeinschaft, like meaning the people, the community of the people, that was then taken by the Austrian painter. It was a term that originated with Kaiser Wilhelm during the First World War, but then it was taken by the Austrian painter, and he meant specifically about the Germanic race, derivative from the Teutonic era. But it's like, at the base word of it is just community of a people. And they're saying, and so J.D. Vance is trying to reinstantiate the border of what an American or what a Christian should view as worthy of protecting. But they're like, no, actually, that border distinction, that's like Austrian painter rhetoric, and it's scary. It's a scary German word. And as we know, the Germans are the root of all evil. And when the Germans are the root of all evil, the Americans the root of all evil, according to the contemporary political left. So it's like a weird way of, it's the same with that like fucking New Yorker writer saying that, deportation was the one that started the what happened in the middle of the 20th century. Yeah. It's like they can't live down the 20th century. They can't. It's never going away. Because it
the 20th century is the ultimate border by which we this goes back to Renard Camus, this goes back to Paul Gottfried. Like the 20th century and the conflicts therein, regardless of however you think about them, have been the eternal justification. Like, I don't even want to say eternal, but at least in the eyes of progressives, it is the starting points, the alpha point. It is the genesis in which our borders are established for the 20th century. And then by extension, the end of the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly. So again, whatever you think of Dominic Venner, whatever you think of Renaud Camus, or whatever you think of even Paul Gottfried, you have to realize that even though it's like, oh, they're nasty, dangerous Austrian painter thinkers, but it's like, well, they're kind of correct in the sense that the contemporary left acts as if the 20th century is the be-all and end-all of history. And so it's like you can say that it comes from an impure source because Renaud Camus came up with the Great Replacement theory, but it's like, okay, whatever. The point being is that, like, in reality, a whole swath of people ideologically operate on that basis. And so you can sort of like bracket the moral purity of whatever thinker that comes up with that conclusion. Right? I mean, hell, we're fucking citing Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault was correct. More correct than mainstream in the sense that everything is an extension of war. Because you have to realize that if you read early Foucault, if you read like The Order of Things, or even if you read like even the most popular works like Discipline and Punish, there was always this relation between psychoanalysis, the creation of psychical knowledge, war with soldiers, and mental institutions and prisons. There was always that like fertile breeding ground of exploring and manipulating and coming up with new bodies of knowledge on the subject, because you had a free-floating amalgamation of humanity that you can easily exploit by definition. Mm-hmm. And so, naturally, soldiers become the objects of scientific experimentation and also psychological experimentation, but also the conditions of a very strict lifestyle that is regimented in war, in a military setting, is also a way of sort of getting rid of the extringencies of normal human life and placing it in the sort of like what that one writer that wrote, that Vietnam War book, what was it? Protocols. Not Protocols. What was it called? Correspondence or something? Like, life becomes very simple. Life becomes very energetic. It becomes very distinct from normal civilian life, with all of its complexities and working in relationships and so forth. And so, Foucault says, like, this is why warfare, mental institutions, and prisons are the primary breeding grounds of sociology. Like, it's a given, right? And you can, and it's also outsider art comes from this. Psychoanalysis comes from this. Even Jung and Freud experimented on war veterans. So, I mean, of course, you have to realize that some of the most productive years of Freud's life was during the First World War, because half his fucking patients were fighting on the front lines. And so he's like, you know what, might as well just start being a theory cell. So, and then when they came home, he got to test his theories even more so. And that didn't go very well. But anyways.
No, it did not. Yeah, no. So what is a woman? Non-retard edition. Thank you, Matt Walsh. Very cool.
Matt Walsh edition.
Definition. A man has small reproductive cells and a woman has large reproductive cells. The strength of this definition is what a simple is that with the simple operation, you are able to determine who is a man and who is a woman. Case closed, you might say. The queer theorist, however, would confront you with the observation that the concepts of man and woman contain much more than this purely biological description. It includes both a whole set of different roles that men and women take up in society and behavioral patterns they live. For some of these roles, you could argue that they are derivable from biology, but not for all of them. Gender enters the picture to solve this problem. A concept of gender becomes even more important when you deal with the empirical fact that men and women have somewhat different roles depending on the society they exist in. At the same time, this also sets the concept of gender under pressure, especially if one holds universalist notions. The feminist asks, if women can own property in society Y, then why can't they in society X? Later, this question turns into, if men can do Z, why can't women also do Z? Who has which gender roles doesn't seem so obvious as one might assume, and feminists jump to this ambiguity to try and force change in their distribution. I identify as an attack helicopter. Oh, good times. The coming of intersectionality in the late 80s and queer theory in the early 90s replaced the previous feminist framework. They came to the observation that if the notion of gender roles is interchangeable, then gender itself should be interchangeable. The troon is the weapon of choice to force this point, especially if you think that gender is performative. And if that
feminists, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if that is the case, then why are there only two genders? They were able to strengthen this idea by drawing upon the experiences of men and women who didn't feel that they fitted into the two prescribed genders. They saw this as confirmation that the empirical reality of being a human didn't fit with the heteronormative thinking, thus as further confirmation to abolish the classic view of gender. The attempt to create a rigged definition of man and woman gave the New Left the opportunity to blow up the distinction between the two. They see the distinction as unjust in three ways. First, it was drawn by men. Second, the place where the border is placed is arbitrary. Third, it leaves out experiences that should be included. It is important to add that this is not just the only border that they are attempting to blow up. Everything, is subject to queering, and so everything is at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Parking space cripples only, although I like the 1P there. We'll let him know. The scope of the problem is much grander than just the dissolution of gender. The crisis of borders runs through every aspect of the modern world. The traditional conservative response is to give ground to the left on almost every issue and pick only a few issues that it performatively defends. The LGB drop the T thing is a good example. As we were just talking about. Thank you, State Department. The problem with this approach is obvious. You give them room to entrench their ideology and let it contaminate everything. When I say that everything can be queered, I mean it. The annoying woman who does the deaf speech gestures in the corner of TV and the wheelchair ramps built in front of every public entrance are but two examples of many that show queer theorists' pervasive influence. I might be less inclined to care so much about the ADA. My issue with the ADA is that it's an unfunded mandate. All these examples exploit the problem of the exception. Also, the ADA, like with any sort of like civil rights laws, that is expanded for virtually everything. I think it's different on a case-by-case basis, but that's a whole other discussion. All these examples exploit the problem of the exception. The few targets that conservatives try to defend, like traditional gender roles, marriage, and national borders, are only defended reactively. It always ends up being nothing more than trying to reach back to the past without answering the present. That's very true. Conclusion. Oh, we're at the end of the essay. I thought this was going to be much longer. The left is able to exploit borders because it rightfully perceives that those borders leave things out. Not everything is accounted for. The traditional response to these attacks is to reaffirm existing borders as eternal and unmovable. This defense does not solve the problem. Those exceptions are still there, and in the case of the LGBTIQ, the experiences of those people that don't fit the traditional gender norms are used to erase the distinction between man and woman. With this in mind, it is vital to understand borders better and to gain a concept of borders that can deal with the problems of the exception. And then we have this the poem here, "The one border no man can escape." I presume he's referring to language, but I would need to translate the poem here. And then we have all of our citations here. So this is a part 1, I think, of 3 that's to come, and I'm sure we'll cover them in the future. But I like that this has been reframed as a borders discussion. I like this. I like this as a border discussion. What about you?
Yeah, well, it is a fundamental reality, but also I think like when I gave it a read over the first time, the very end I think is prescient because it really problematizes the way that conservatives, people like Jordan Peterson, have thought, or James Lindsay or whoever, has really thought about the political spectrum. That really comes from, I think, a lot of ideas, and maybe one day me and you will do a deep dive on the libertarian movement. I'm rewatching these like mid-2000s like new age conspiracy documentaries. I might do something about it with Kat. But
if you want to cover libertarianism, I have a laundry list of guests that we can interview and bring on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just give me a few maybe for next week.
Yeah.
But there was like a lot of conceptual baggage that came from libertarianism. And one of them that really animated the right wing, from like Jordan Peterson all the way to Mr. Mushroom Melt Burger Spencer. The thing that animated them, although I think Spencer's like obviously moved beyond it, not that I would give him any credence for anything, but like, God, I don't like him. But anyways, the thing that really animated people was this sort of like individualism versus collectivism thing that was like permeated throughout like every Sargon video back in like circa Gamergate 2015 to like Jordan Peterson. And I think that really is problematized because you can't really fit collectivism or individualism in a neat mold on ideological spectrum lines, because both the political right and the political left have their own degrees of individualism and collectivism. So, for example, people that frame the left as collectivist, when in reality, especially when you talk about trans ideology, it's like an extremely individualist thing, because now you're defining yourself. You are literally speaking your own existence into being, which is like, I know people throw the word Gnostic around, but like, you can't really say that that's like, now there's a lot of parts of the left that is collectivist, as there is a lot of parts of the political right that are collectivist. And collectivism on the political right has really won out since libertarian days. But it's like, you can't really describe like the left is collectivist and the right is individualist. Like that just doesn't really, like, you have to basically only hyper focus on the American liberal political spectrum of the last 50 years. Like, not even that. Like, literally, it's just from fucking Ronald Reagan. Like, not even. It's not from Eisenhower. Like, you could say it's like from the post-war consensus. But like even like American individualism, I think conservatives and like constitutionalists have like way overplayed it. Like your typical boomer conservative, like even nowadays, I saw this one press briefing talking about the continuity of government. It's like, that was like such a huge bugaboo term that people like Alex Jones were like, continuity of government. And like, that would be like, continuity of government equals we're going in the FEMA camps, the black FEMA box, darkness is all around me, right? But nowadays, like a lot of conservatives, especially boomers, they don't really, even like American individualism was much more open to communal engagement. Even like Tocqueville saw that, than like what people on the political right in America are willing to believe. Not even the political right, but like conservatives are willing to admit. Like, America wasn't this like fucking Rambo, Bazooka Joe, like I'm in my land and I'm fighting against the savage hordes on myself and my ranch and my homestead. Like, like America was, even like the bastardization of like the Jeffersonian yeoman farmer ideal, even that like entailed a form of community. It was free floating, it was free association, but like all this is mute because I think not that I like I shouldn't give Moldbug that much credence, but like he was correct that like Hamilton pretty much won out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just our world cannot cope with that extreme sovereign citizen libertarian fantasy. Like, it's just not real. You know what I mean? I don't think it ever was real. Now, elements of it were real, but I think that, like, people give, like, the mistake a lot of conservatives made was to harp upon this, like, individualism thing. You know, individualism is a good thing. Like, Faustian man does walk alone, is an individual. But that doesn't mean that, like, European Faustian man is immune to any form of community. Now, the contemporary political left, they're really immune to any form of traditional community. Now, they have this sort of, like, what do the trans people call it? They call it, like, my chosen family or whatever, where they all
they renounce the unchosen bonds for chosen. The family you get to choose.
Exactly, but that's like everything from that to abortion to lifestyle politics to even foreign policy. All of that comes from this fetishization of, like, I was born into the world without my choice, but I can choose things, man. Like, it's like
their attempt of making the most of a quote unquote shitty situation. They're just like, I exist without my consent, but at least I can choose my friends who I can be heckin' decent human beings with.
Yeah.
But even then, right, it's the erosion of border of unchosen bonds, because you're like, traditionally you would say, and I mean, I think most people would agree with this regardless of religion, that they would say, listen, you are literally born naked into this world, and you are given maybe, like, at best, 3 things. You are given your name, your family, and what you choose to do with it. And even then, that's giving a lot of agency to the third one. But I mean, really, that's it. It's like you're born with nothing, and all you have are the people that birthed you. And if you're lucky, they will take care of you, and that's family, and those are unchosen bonds. Now, of course, there's the shitty situation where, you know, kids get abandoned or whatever. But like most of the time in regular world society, that's how it goes. That you are raised and you were socialized and you were taken care of until you were capable of leaving and becoming, you know, one flesh with somebody else. But, you know, most of the time, that's how it's supposed to be. But because we live where those things have been quote unquote queered, those things have been deemed problematic, heteronormative, patriarchal, imperialist, etc., that has to go away. And in doing so, I mean, this, and as Volpez was talking about, like, this is just true for everything. This is why the intersectional framework, and I hate to sound so 2015, is such an important thing to understand when coming to terms with these, like, lefties, is that it really is about the intersection of all things, that all things can actually mesh together. They still have a hierarchy. I mean, progressives have hierarchy, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. They're just like, well, we have to destroy, like, white heteronormative, like, you know, Western standards. And, like, you'll see, like, fat black women on in, like, a subway or whatever saying, like, so I'm so sorry you've been brainwashed by Western beauty standards. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're ugly. But, like, you know, that's sort of just the way it goes, because we have 2 different ways of looking at the world that are obviously not congruent and probably not really Western to begin with. But the point being is that clash is a border, you know, that sudden clash between, like, classical standards of what we would find attractive, you know, thin or wide hips or whatever you're into, in comparison to, you know, like, fat gender goblin. And I mean, even members of parliament in Britain, I think Jess Phillips has that in her fucking bio as gender goblin. And it's just like, everyone knows what that means. Everyone, or she did at some point. And it's like, everyone knows what that means. Everyone knows what side you're on, and you are for the abolition of things. And I mean, like, trans will do it. And I mean, the thing though about, like, this sort of liberation.
I can't be a heckin' wholesome person around my racist uncle. You know,
your racist uncle is probably a good man and is probably right about everything, and you're just wrong. But I mean, to go back to the individualism point, like, there's a difference between, like, extreme hedonistic liberation and the rugged individualism that was, you know, aligned with the state in the sense of expanding the West. Like the mythology of the rugged individual gets really warped after the frontier closes and we mythologize it. Like, anyone could make it work. And it's like, well, no, I mean, like, they made it work also because, like, your homestead was most likely going to be defended by the United States cavalry that would go out and wage war on the red man on your behalf, because the entire existence of, like, white expansion in the United States are settlers engaging in a war of, like, racial extermination with a side that equally wants you dead and has been very good at exterminating other Indian races on this continent centuries before any European stepped foot on it.
A few times, like, the Iroquois hit prestige many times on genociding other.
Very good. They're very good at it. Redman's very good at killing.
The Huron. Yeah.
They're very good at it.
So there's so many tribes that the Iroquois Confederacy genocided. You can't really keep track of all of them, you know.
We're supposed to believe it's the noble savage. The noble savage. You hear this mess? You hear these lies? The noble savage, folks. Nasty business.
Nasty business, folks.
Nasty woman.
They're clever. They're clever. I think I'm more clever, but they're clever. You know, that's something Trump would say. Remember what he said about his uncle that was a physicist? He's like, he was a really smart guy. I think I'm smarter than him, but he was a really smart guy.
Say what you will about Trump, whether you love him or hate him. I think he's the funniest president we will ever have.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He is the like they're like, are you gonna go visit the crash site? And he's like, the site's in the water. What do you want me to do? Swim? And I was like, we don't deserve this. And
he's funnier than Reagan. Reagan was pretty funny though.
Reagan is funny. Reagan was funny for his time, and Reagan also had a lot of like pop culture backing him. Like I think it was his re-election in '84. And they had, I think it was Don Rickles that gave like this little opening. It was really funny. But that culture is so far removed from us now. Like instead we have shit poster in chief, and it's so, we get what we deserve. I really do think that DeMaistre quote is right. But I mean,
my favorite was the Soviet jokes. That was my favorite.
I liked the one for Reagan. I liked it. It was after the assassination attempt. He had heard a balloon pop, and then he just says, "Missed me." You know, like there's good quips. Reagan is awful in a lot of ways, but he had good. I mean, it's about having good screen presence. I think this is why the reality TV star and media mogul and real estate, you know, it works for him. It works for him. It helps a lot.
Any president since maybe like Teddy Roosevelt can say, like Trump says, that God literally saved my life to save the American Republic. Like no other president can claim that besides maybe Teddy Roosevelt. Like maybe Andrew Jackson, but like that's, you know, like God was literally on my side. And he was. That's what I believe. But God's a libtard according to fucking Kevin Gallagher and all the other left calves. So
yeah, it's that's been very frustrating. I mean, Trump won't take any heat for this one because this isn't his battle. Because Trump is not a. I'm sure he has some idea of God in his head, but he doesn't adhere to any like traditional view of God in either a Christian or Jewish sense of that word. I think he just a higher power. Although I mean, obviously he placates his base, whether it's the pro-lifers or whatever. You know, like it's there, and he knows how to play politics. But I mean, this whole debate about where to prioritize, you know, your affections and your love for neighbor, this is all going to be on JD Vance. You know, it's solely going to be on him and no one else.
What was the principle he cited from Augustine?
It's from the City of God. It's Ordo Amoris, the right order of affections. And it's Augustine's hierarchy of love.
Yeah.
You know, God on top, other human beings in the middle, and the non-human beings at the bottom. And yeah, it's his pneumatology for affection. And you see this not just in City of God, but it's also in on his book, The Morals of the Church. It's just like, you know, and again, you know, every aspect about this is there, you know, whether it's both in New Testament, Old Testament scripture, it's all there. And the prioritization of those around you, and then the stranger, and also to be mindful of the stranger that are in your midst, because you too were once a stranger in Egypt. But also, you know, even now, I mean, throughout human history, you know, this is sort of just the natural order of things that almost every society that had ever existed pre-Christian and is Christian, and I guess in some places post-Christian, you know, the definitely looking around saying, well, you got to prioritize who's around you first, both as a systematized aspect of leadership and governance, but also that like you can't really focus abroad and then not do anything at home at all. I mean, like, this is the whole point that even Dickens is criticizing in a hefty majority of his work, especially Bleak House. Like, this telescopic philanthropy and interest while letting your children and everything else go by the wayside. What kind of fucking person are you? You're a hypocrite. And I mean, all these people that are like, well, you're supposed to like love everybody else and not those around you. It's just like, well, okay, great. But if I look at those around me and I simply wish them well and I don't do anything, St. James has got some lovely words in his epistle about what's going to happen to you if you don't abide by that. I don't know. Again, all
There's
that this
all these
is
toy beard like theology school people that are coming out against JD Vance, and it's like theologian here.
Yeah, like actually,
here. Yeah, actually, like
liberation theology and its consequences has been a disaster for like the Western moral direction.
Well, really, I really do blame the church in North America and liberation theology and a lot of these like pink mafia subversives like James Martin for really destroying particularly Catholic pedagogy in North America. And so you have these left Catholics like fucking Kevin Gallagher, Metcha Bernald, and Kevin Gallagher, you have to remember, I hope JD Vance actually does go after him for leaking fucking chats, logs from 2015 to be this like October surprise that never went anywhere. Like, you did a good job there. And then he came out of a locked account to scold JD Vance. And I think the first tweet was, I may do this quite pedantly, but he's wrong because of this strained, manipulated interpretation of Matthew or certain phrases by St. Augustine. And it's like, first of all, why do these left cats, why do they have the Phrygian cap in their profile pictures but specifically the French Revolution Phrygian cap? The extreme, sadistic, murderous anti-clericalism of the French Revolution. Why would, as supposed Catholics, why would they be parading her around? Oh, I forgot, because De Maistre is evil, because those evil chud right-wingers that they somehow hung around with in 2014, 2015 are evil. And so therefore we have to praise the French Revolution. And it just doesn't make sense to me. So this fucking leech, this parasite Kevin Gallagher, comes out and makes this thread that I was going to read on air, but really it's not worth my fucking time. I may rant about it in the Cole Report. But he comes out with this pissany thread about how JD Vance is wrong and how actually you have to love everybody equally, even though it says in scripture that that's basically impossible. In terms of from a mortal perspective. But also another thing that I really got my goat, even though I myself am a cradle Catholic, is that they were really going hard against converts. That they think that converts are weird. And one fucking idiot said that, they can't find meaning in their lives, man, like normal people, so they have to go towards religion. And you have to realize a lot of these irony cells that the left cats parade around with, and we should, Nightmare Vision has a good history of this. A lot of these left cats that party with irony cells online since like 2015 onwards, they like, my family was Irish, my family was like Scotch, Irish, Polish, my grandfather was Catholic, my grandmother was Catholic, and so to them Catholicism is like this weird extension of like my grandfather was Irish type of deal.
Yeah, just an immigrant identity.
Exactly, an immigrant identity. Not a real belief system. Not a real metaphysics. Not a real a call towards being. And this fucking idiot said that, this viral tweet against JD Vance said that just learn the Beatitudes and basically be a heckin' good person. That's all that Catholicism is. Be a heckin' good person, the Beatitudes, and that's it. Not the catechism, not the metaphysics, not the fathers of the church, not divine simplicity, nothing. Be a heckin' good fucking person. That's what they think Catholicism is. And people like James Martin go right ahead and agree with them because they are subversives. There's a lot of people in the papacy, I hate to say it, higher ups that are subversive. And they enable this. They enable people like Liz Brunig and Metche Bernald and Kevin G. And as a cradle Catholic, to pour scorn on converts, whether you're Orthodox or Catholic, hell, if you want to pour scorn on people who are converting to Hinduism, if you're a Hindu, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you realize the politics that these people actually worship, then it makes sense why they hate converts so much. Because I will never, as a Catholic, pour scorn on people that truly convert to the church. And to do that, it really is blasphemy. Christianity at its root is a proselytizing religion. It says so in Scripture. Aquinas, any church father, really. Name me one church authority, one church father that would ever say that these groups of Catholics that are born Catholic are these super special people, but everyone that converts sincerely in their hearts, that they're somehow lesser than the fucking cradle Catholic that doesn't even go to church on Easter, let alone Christmas. You know, it's I just saw this shit, and I know I shouldn't be swearing, but like, to me, it was so disgusting. These people are rats. And I have no quarter for them. And you should give them no quarter. Because they are subversives. And I know it's an Oren McIntyre meme or whatever, but they truly do wear your religion as a skin suit. And I have nothing but contempt for these left Caths. And really, it's just, it's a shame. And you know, the one thing, listen, I am skeptical on J.D. Vance on many issues. But in this case, the fact that he knew, because he was in these circles, he knew how to get under their skin. And he knew the response he was going to get from these people. And I think that was a perfect revenge after Kevin Gallagher leaked some innocuous chats where J.D. Vance may be slightly edgy, that was going to be an October surprise. Well, you know, I'm sorry. I hope the DOJ goes after him for treason, in my opinion. But anyways, I'm sorry, man. It's just these fucking people really annoy me. And it's like if you're an Orthodox, but you're an Orthodox convert. You're not a real Orthodox because you're not Russian, you're not Ukrainian, you're not Serbian, you're not Ethiopian even, Prude. You're not a real fucking Orthodox person. Imagine if someone said that to you. You know, it's you know what I mean. I'm belaboring the point.
I'd have a good chuckle just in part because of how often I'm at church and all the other. Anyway, it's funny. I guess I don't. It's partially I don't talk about it too much, and perhaps it's a faulty end on my own, just because I'm not any authority to say anything. I've been there for several years now. I serve as the parish's treasurer and whatnot. But I mean, what I'm witnessing is just a very bizarre form of liberal Donatism when they're talking about like converts. And in part because since COVID especially, you know, a lot of more doctrinally, I'm going to just say little o orthodox, you know, branches of Christianity have seen a huge resurgence in numbers, and primarily, of course, by young men. Because as we've talked about with this culture war, and as we talked about with this article, who gets fucked over for like the last 15 years? Like our entire online political existences as people who consumed or engaged in IRL politics like I did. What did you witness? You witnessed the great walking away from men. This abdication of responsibility for the future men that are supposed to inherit a land that is for their posterity passed down to them by their fathers. And then on top of this, you have this great apostasy from by the state, by its leaders, who you can talk about deism, you can talk about whatever, but like, you know, it's the people who had oversaw and presided over this were ministers. You can go through, there's a great 2-volume set of the political sermons of the American founding from like 1755 to like 1805. And they are some fantastic reads, even if you don't find anything exegetical about them from a Christian standpoint. But these were God-fearing people. And so the God of your fathers gets abandoned by the state, and it pursues every form of evil that would be deemed abhorrent, both in Mosaic law, but also in the laws that we would understand with classical Western tradition. And then all of a sudden, you've been told that you're useless. And so where do men go? Well, men try and find faith.
Exactly.
Men try and find answers. And on top of all this, what do we get? Well, don't trust them. Don't trust them. They're trying to find answers. They're trying to seek out meaning in all these things. You can't trust them. So you get this like really weird liberal Donatism, a very early heresy that like, these people have to be perfect in order for the sacraments to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, then everything's a wash. And it's like, if they're not liberal, if they're not leftist, if they're not xenophilic, worshiping at the feet of some strange refugee that we take millions of dollars from the federal government a year because that's how the United States, Catholic bishops are going to go about it, then obviously these guys aren't good. They're bad and they're evil, and this is, and it's infuriating. And I mean, I get it. I'm not a cradle Catholic. I'm not really a cradle anything because I wasn't really raised with religion. Just as an army brat, you don't really get to have that because there's not a lot of faith. There's not a lot of power, I think, in a lot of that. And I'm sure, and it's just how I was raised.
We have the American religion, though, as an army brat.
Well, you have that. It's a patriotism. It's this ethos that really that you represent your father or your mother if they're in the military, and you represent your flag and your nation, your people. So, like, I have a very deep-seated sense of American patriotism, and I want America to succeed. I want my people to thrive, but I also know what an American is. Whereas these people will tell you that is meaningless. These Vivek Ramaswamy types, these left Cath types, these liberation theologists, these fucking Marxists, and for all intents and purposes, these heretics will tell you
they're really just Marxists at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, isn't Marxism and socialism and communism isn't that deemed anathema from a papal encyclical by like Pope Leo XIII in the late 1800s?
Yes.
Yeah, like, okay, yeah, tell me what a good fucking Catholic you are.
Well, it's condemned by the Orthodox Church as
well.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, it is by us as well. But I mean, like, still, it's just like, what a good fucking Catholic you are. Like, for having an allegedly infallible universal bishop, like, well played. And again, I shouldn't be swearing either, but it is incredibly frustrating to witness the corruption of things that, and someone had mentioned at this point, he's just like, can you imagine trying to convert a Roman senator with this stuff? You couldn't, because I mean, and the faith would not have survived the way that it did unless it was clearly something that it is not being professed today by these liberals, and it's very frustrating in that regard.
Yeah.
And at the end, what is it a slap in the? And I mean, whether or not you think J.D. Vance is a believer or not, or whatever, and that he's recent and he converted only a few years ago, I think, prior to his Senate run. I mean, that's besides the point. The point is that he is professing something that, until maybe 100 years ago, at best, what had been seen as an inversion of any classical doctrine of any Christian denomination or church.
Yeah.
And instead, yes, the Lord loveth the stranger, and the Lord keepeth him, and the Lord will protect and provide for the orphan and the widow, and the way of the sinner shall be destroyed. But at the end of the day, I also know that I know that the dread judgment is not going to bode well for me if I say I have to do everything about everything else in the world and bring all these people in when I ignore the beggar that is outside my street. And, and there are numerous fathers of the church, both pre and post schism, that will call you out for that. Oh, you do all these things, but do you know the name of the beggar that lives on your road? And what do you do for him? And I mean, again,
Marx ignored the begging of his own children.
Well,
so,
not like it's only God can deal with Marx in that regard, but I presume it's not in the best of ways. But
probably not.
Probably not. I'm sure he's yelling at me from down below, asking for water from my fingers.
Tapping my foot is, how's the weather down there, boys?
Yeah,
Oh man, milk truck driver, the most legendary going off moment from Gio was when he went after Romeo Dallaire. That was great. That was a great rant. I really fucking brutalized Romeo Dallaire verbally. I verbally molested him. That was, like Paul Talk. He's got Paul Talk down to. It's like Gio Talk down to. Left Caths and Romeo Dallaire. That was pretty funny. That was a great rant. That was a mega rant. That was pretty great. I should clip that one.
You should.
I forget what episode that was. Anyways, no, but I think that it does. Like I know, like for example, I know like a lot of debates between like pagans and Catholics and Christians online about Christianity being universalizing religion. Which I mean, you can't deny reality. It is a universalizing religion, but I think that there's still confines by which you go about daily life
And there's particularities to how that
Yeah.
faith is expressed. There can be oneness in mind and doctrine and belief, and that the gospel that which you received is not, like Paul's gospel or whatever. No, it's the gospel of Christ. And I mean, you see this even inside church traditions, because the way that the French Catholics express themselves is going to be vastly different than Italian Catholics. It's going to be vastly different than Germanic Catholics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the same way it is in the East. Russians and Greeks will do the same liturgy of John Chrysostom, and still their expressions and their hymnography will be vastly different. You still have those like centric. We want our guys. We focus and prioritize even in their rubrics. I mean, they'll prioritize their saints over the others because those are of their land, of their heritage, of their homeland, that inspired and evangelized to their people. And it's the same even for the Americans who've converted. You have Saint Herman, you have Saint Raphael, you have so many other people that are part of that. They're yours, and that's a part of it. There's that love that you want to prioritize of your own, and that's a natural order of that. And yes, there are plenty of things that they'll be like, well, God tells you to hate your parents. And it's just like, well, when we read that in context, and we also read that in context of scriptures, like, what are we being told? To put God first above all else, which is an incredibly tall order when we focus on the material aspects of the day-to-day, which makes it sound all but impossible unless we do it with God with us.
Right. But most people, especially these people, are incapable of that. Let's face it.
Well, of course they are, because they don't worship God. They don't worship the crucified and risen Christ. They don't do any of that. What do they worship? The spirit of the age. They were there with the prince of this world. They are there with the one that had decided to torment. I'm frustrated, to say the least.
There were Russian Orthodox canonized saints that were martyred by communism. Like they have their own icons. I forget their names, but like there were quite a few of them that were martyred by the Soviets. Yeah.
But I mean, regardless of that point, I mean, just the bare basic bones of like, no, the religion of today it really just means like erasure. And I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not going to listen to anyone who tells me that, oh, well, you should love thy neighbor. And it's just like, okay, do you? You don't. You don't love your neighbor. You don't love the guy that lives right next to you.
Future?
Yeah, where's the love in that?
Yeah.
You tell me to love the neighbor. Okay. I'll take care of the guy that lives down the street. I'll go to my fucking soup kitchen like I do once a month and work. Don't. I'm not going to be lectured by someone who tells me
in Springfield.
Yeah, I'm not going to be lectured by someone who tells me that who equates love thy neighbor with fuck whitey. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I'm not going to be lectured by you.
What was you saying to a crusader during the Third Crusade with Richard the Lionheart? What would you say to them if they said that, Saladin's army, they're also your neighbor, you know that, right? And I know they're trying to take over the Holy Land, but it's like, what do you think that crusading knight would do to you if you said that they're also your neighbors? You know that, right? I don't think, Yeah. There's saints that really, there were saints that have died in the most horrible of ways to preserve their faith, who fought in wars, who witnessed countless atrocities throughout the centuries. But, that's all irrelevant, I guess, because, people need fucking pronouns in their bio, I guess. It's just like, it's like, this is what I mean. Like, for people that live in such lap of luxury, they really have to find ways to say that our suffering is the most immense amount of suffering ever. Now, I will admit that, like, as we've said on the show countless times, that there are unique selection pressures on the digital man than there was in the past. But, compared to our ancestors, imagine the immense amount of suffering that they endured. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't fathom it. You couldn't fathom going all the way from Italy to the Holy Land and seeing half your men, half your staff dying of disease and hostile locals. And you couldn't fathom that. You couldn't, it's just, or even nowadays, there's atrocities going on in Eastern Europe. It's just, when people exploit your inherent impulse towards alleviating suffering, I always think that there's something wrong with those people. But it's the way that they frame it. If they frame it in this very like secular ethic, like we don't choose to be born, man. And when they always talk about, we gotta get rid of suffering, gotta get rid of suffering. It's like, I don't know, man. Like those people have led to a lot of human bloodshed. People that claimed that they were going to create heaven and earth. There was something about, there's something about it. There's something about trying to eminentize the eschaton to such an extent through some fucking secular humanist do-gooding that leads to the worst atrocities in human history. There's something about that. It's just, and you have people making the same mistake over and over and over again. I mean, I know this is not like a nuclear take or whatever, but I think like people aren't humble before anything greater than themselves. That's a real big problem. And a lot of people don't really take into consideration the immense amount of things it took to get to this moment. There was a tweet I saw from my good friend Marcus, Sumer Schopenhauer, when they were debating the death penalty over that Rwandan monster that redacted those 3 girls in the UK. That, whether you like it or not, you are the beneficiary of your genetic line being weeded out from psychos and murderers and rapists because of capital punishment over the centuries. Whether you like it or not, you are a beneficiary of that process.
Yeah, capital punishment was a positive eugenic effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but it's a very brutal reality to state it so bluntly, but it's true. But modern people can't really we don't really think of things in terms of that. Like I don't like to reduce things down to brute biology as well, like or evolutionary psychology. I think that very materialist approach has limitations, but at the same time there are just inherent facts to what amounted to you being carried on to this present moment that are dark and are brutal, but are reality. And I don't know. It's just, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the most dysgenic political age, and I don't mean that about abortion or lifestyle choices or diet, but simply by choosing to, whether it's xenophilia, preference for the out group, a hatred of the homeland, this thirst for annihilation of the self, whatever, whatever self-suicidal drive or impulse that goes for this. Whether it's attributed to him or not, but like Conquest's third law, like just assume that everything's being run by a cabal of your enemies, and you look at it and it's just like, well, yeah, clearly, because instead I have been selected, my own ethnos, my own people, my own genos has been selected to be passed over for the other. And if that isn't the greatest betrayal outside of Judas Iscariot, don't know what to tell you, don't know what to say. But it is.
Yeah.
It's a betrayal of the highest order. And it's incredibly frustrating that cannot be simply acknowledged for what it is. And people are like, well, if you say like traitor or race traitor, like that just sounds like radical. And it's just like, I think what's more radicalizing has been that the state, through either anarcho-tyranny or just willful self-selection, has simply decided to say, like, people like that killer in the United Kingdom, or even here in the United States with all of what happened in 2020, or the fact that you can't even just openly say, like, hey, there's like 13% of the population that is responsible for most of the violent crime in this country, and that we have a justice system that is way too lenient on them. Apparently that, we've chosen this metaphysical safetyism of not wanting to be seen as racist or a heckin' good person.
Well,
and that has been the most quiet form of suicide I've ever witnessed in my life.
Well, Keir Starmer came out and said that he's going to exclude, personally, a life sentence for this Rwandan monster. Like, he literally hates his own people. We have people that listen to us from the UK. We have people that listen to us from Ireland and the UK. There's really, what can you say? That is a level of hatred of his own citizenry that you can't fathom. You can't fathom. 3 little girls, and you're not going to give them a life sentence even. Not even like the sort of like, passive sort of like needle that they'll give you in places like Texas, Louisiana, or whatever. Not even a life sentence. You know, what is he going to get? He's going to get the Breivik 20-year deal that is lowered to 15. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's insanity. And there's no words that really can describe it. Like, no, there has been a lot of bad leaders throughout human history. There's been a lot of very disgusting tyrants throughout human history. But I think that when it comes to a simple tyrant, you know, even if you read the debate between Kojev and Leo Strauss on tyranny, about Herod the Tyrant, there's still a clear motivation there. There's still something that motivates the tyrant towards doing what he does. But here, apart from just outright malice, there's no real logical sense there. There's no, like, as a leader of a nation, do you not want your name to be etched in eternity for some reason? But when it comes to this level of infamy, it's you can't really. And sometimes I think that there's not even somebody there. It's just the operating procedural ideology. There's no such thing as a person called Keir Starmer. There's no such thing as a person called Justin Trudeau. There's nobody there. They're just the amalgamation of a number of discourses and practices and muddled beliefs that have been instantiated in the transnational progressive order for decades now. They're the perfect rulers of this age, if you will, as terrifying as that is to admit. But, well, I mean, Trudeau's out there, whoever is Mark Carney. There's no real Mark Carney there, you know? There's no Keir Starmer. It's some kind of abstraction.
Well, I mean, and it really is, there's this embrace for destruction. There was some tweet that was just like, well, why don't you just live now? Because like hundreds of years from now, no one that you're related to will have your family name, da 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 da. And it was just like, speak for yourself, you piece of shit. You know, like, oh, well, just enjoy now. Like, don't worry about it, because hundreds of years from now, none of this will really matter in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we won't point out their contradictions for climate change eschatology or whatever, but it's just like, no, actually, because like if my name has lasted this long, if all these men that have like fought, killed, died, went to wars, and somehow managed to successfully breed and pass on their genes to keep the family name going to a point where I'm not going to dox it, but it's just like to the point where my middle name has been in my family for over 8 generations, and my future children will have that in their name somehow as well. No, fuck you. I refuse to just embrace this death with this Western world that has opted to embrace itself only just to die. Again, this is why I really think that
like a sick animal.
Yeah, like it's just like, oh, well, why don't we just waste? Like you said, it's a wasting disease.
Yeah,
you know, like that's it. And I think that that's sort of the real thing to consider about all of the work and the writing that has been talked about in this day and age. And I think that I refuse to, you know, like I'm good. I think I'm going to move on and be something more than that, than just simply to die. Because why would I do that? Because obviously you have nothing for me to offer, you know, like, you know, again, I really think that people should read P.D. James.
Well, they offer like they offer holding hands and singing "We Are the World" with everybody.
It's just like, well, we're gonna give the world a song to sing about coke and gay sex, and we'll just go from there. And it's just like, no, I think I'm okay. I think I choose more than that. Sorry, you know, like I really, and again, I wish I hate the movie. I really do hate the movie, but I really wish if I could behoove the audience to read a book written by a woman, go read The Children of Men. Like, read the original book. Go. Don't watch the movie. Read the original book. Published a little over 30 years ago. Go read the book. You'll see what kind of culture we live in. A culture that has opted to say that there is no future, so we'll just waste away.
Yeah,
that
really is the CRN. You know, the. I think that was one of his books, Decay. It was really great. But anyways, why are you guys not needing super chats?
Also, keep in mind, in P.D. James's book, the England that she writes about is set in 2021. We're 4 years past her dystopia. Just let that settle in. Let that settle in.
That is crazy, eh? That's crazy. Breivik got 21 years plus detention, like what Americans get 375 years behind bars, means he always will get out. He will never get out. Well, I don't know. I mean, they say that Breivik might get out eventually, but you never know. I mean, hey, they let Varga. It was self-defense, though. It was self-defense. Now, Chris Hassler, I would appreciate if you gave Prude a super chat, but Prude asked Gio his view of Julius Evola, said power should be in the hands of warriors and Priest should be in second. Rene Gugnon felt the reverse. I understand where Evola's coming from, but I guess maybe just because I am, a theory cell, I think that there can be a harmony between both, but I would side a little bit with Rene Gugnon, although I do say that Evola does mount a great critique of when a priest caste degrades into nothing but abstractions, whereas the Kshatriya class, the warrior caste, can see things with much clarity. So I think that there must be a harmony between the both of them, but I do think that the priestly class does experience a form of phronesis or ability to rule, whereas Kshatriyas, they can be very messy when they rule. But in times of crisis, I think they can act with much more efficiency than. So that's. I mean, it's a convoluted answer, but
no, I mean,
you need both.
I mean, I've read quite a bit of Evola. I mean, we're not as much as I probably should have. I mean, I've read Ride the Tiger, Metaphysics of War, and which other book did I read? It's on my shelf here somewhere. But I mean, I think that one has to understand what a priest should also be. In the Christian tradition, especially if you read like the first, I mean, both Ante-Nicene and Nicene fathers, the priest is a warrior, both a spiritual one, but also one against, the prince of this world. And the moment they lose sight of that for abstractions and not what's tangibly in front of them to help their fellow man, I think it's very easy for the priestly class to fall into corruption or to fall into abstraction, or as we see now for a lot of churches, to fall in for the far away and the xenophile. That's there. And that's when you want the warrior to step in and to correct that. But priests should be warriors against enforced with order and with strength of a warrior to do so, but also to be able to, divinely order things according to whatever their belief system may be. So, I mean, I think that there needs to be some kind of symphonia between the two, but I side more with Gwinon than I do with Evola, although I think that Evola makes a very good argument in Metaphysics of War for why the warrior class should be in charge. But the warrior class, unless anchored to a doctrine or a tradition or a belief system, it can go bad very quickly. And you can look towards not just the barbarity of all the wars in the West and Europe to show that, but also even in other parts of the world, East and the islands and the Orient and even South and Central America, pre-American contact. There's a lot there.
Younger came the closest to the ideal of the priest becoming a warrior in our lifetime, anyways. Not the ancients, but in terms of the 20th century. I mean, Ernst Younger pretty much is the model, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the closest you're going to get, I think, in the 20th, outside of maybe some of the Russian Civil War. I don't know about enough of de Gaulle's religiosity to have an opinion.
Probably Peter Wrangel, yeah.
Well, Peter Wrangel, Ivan Alexandrovich Ilin, I think that there's a lot there that you can work off of. But I mean, I think both make a good point, but I think just out of my faith, I would say that the priest class there should be there. Unfortunately for us, we are ruled by a priest class. They all just happen to be fags. That's the problem. That's the problem, is that you live with a very corrupted priestly class that should be rooted out by its warriors.
I don't know, man. That's why I think the Trump administration, they're doing it, but I think I don't know. I think Yarvin simplifies things by saying well, what happens when you take over a corporation? You give a corporate buyout, and you got to buy them out to really say, here's your severance. You didn't do a good job, but whatever. And now we're taking over the corporation of government. It's like I don't know. I think like it's kind of too simple in my opinion. I don't know.
Just
like,
a tad. Just a tad.
Just a bit,
Just a little bit.
Carlyle called Luther the Odin of Christianity. Whoa, that's kind of cool, actually. Luther was the Odin of Christianity. I wonder how Carlyle came to that conclusion, though. I mean, I'm sure he has a logical reason as to why he called him the Odin of Christianity. But did you see that? Speaking of corrupted priests, did you see that? Like, what is she, an Anglican or something?
Are you referring to the National Cathedral service?
Yes.
Episcopalian.
Oh God. She's like trans rights, human rights, like that's what she
like
really
the traditional the traditional Reformed Church of the American founding. I mean, like the first 7 presidents were Episcopalian, and on the record they have the most presidents just by denomination in the history of this country. To see it degraded to what it is. Also, like the National Cathedral's on a charter. Like Congress or the president or whoever can revoke that charter at any time. We don't need it. And I'm sorry, like if the imperial capital is just going to do this shit, not interested. No thanks. I'm not going to be lectured by someone who is wanting to tell me what Jesus really meant when they don't believe that Jesus rose from the dead on the 3rd day as he foretold. Like, I'm not interested. Sorry, like I'm just not. It didn't need to. It didn't need to happen. It did not need to happen.
That's like here in Canada with the oh man, if you Leafs out there, this is a deep cut. This is like here in Canada with the United Church. You have guys like Tom Harpoo, who wrote that book. There was that woman bishop who was part of the Anglican Church, but then there was Tom Harpoo that like came out and said, like, I don't really believe that Christ was resurrected on the 3rd day. Like, it's like
it should be defrocked right there. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's United Social Club of Canada. It's not real. But no, it's funny because the libs, like all these people are like, really, they're just atheists. Even the ones that profess some kind of like weirdo new age woo, or the ones that like the BIPOC ones that are like, well, I'm worshiping my indigenous African spirits, blah, blah, blah. A lot of them really are just basically atheists in garb. It's very funny when they'll lecture you by saying, they'll take like the worst example, the most libtarded Christian figure that doesn't even believe in God. And they're like, see, look, an actual bishop is scolding Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Oh my God. Because I think like what they think is that like I think what they think is that when they hear the word bishop, they just mean Catholic. It's like a cultural memory thing, like the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
So they think like this woman's like a Catholic bishop or whatever. And they're just like, see, J.D. Vance says he's Catholic, but this bishop says that he's evil. What mean? It's like, you fucking. It's like literally that's the take I've seen, and these are like professional journalists making this take.
Oh, they just want to. They're just.
Now.
It's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's the whole neuron activation soy jack. Like, oh my God, someone's repeating my talking points. And it's just like, no, like stop talking. You need to be defenestrated like immediately. Just like no.
It's like they love grandmas that swear.
Yeah, it's just like and it's like all those like lefties on Twitter that'll just be like, my grandma said that like she hates that effing or whatever, and I'm just like, okay, I don't believe you. But even if that's true, like all the more reason why you should never, like, I mean, okay, for an example, just because it's he needs to be reported to the federal authorities for threats against a public official's life, but like Will Stancil, right? The guy ran for public office in the United States. Well, that too. Although he got his tweet reported for violence, but he lives in a foreign country. He should just be drone strike. That's a whole other discussion. Like, with regards to this, it's just like, okay, this guy is making actionable threats against the life of Elon Musk, whether you like Musk or not.
Yeah,
Musk is part of a federal advisory committee with Doge and all the rest. Like, and he's just like, well, Musk should get the wall. And it's just like, okay, that is something to report to the FBI tip line there. But also it illustrates
platform too.
But it illustrates the most important thing, that you cannot live with these people. Because if they get in power, these are their fantasies. These are what they want. And again, it's not that they'll settle for your surrender. They do just want you dead.
Yeah. Yeah, Will Stoncil literally wants you dead for your beliefs. Like, that's true. You know, I don't even want Will Stoncil dead for his beliefs. I just don't want Will Stoncil near any form of power. I'll settle for that, you know. You know what? I don't want Will Stoncil dead because he is like a lolcow and he's very entertaining. And so, like, why would I want to chop the head off the golden goose of lolcow of Jule? You know what I mean? Why would I want to wish death upon Will Stoncil when Will Stoncil and Emily Yukis trolling Will Stoncil and Nightmare Efsler trolling him has given me endless amounts of entertainment? Why would it's like I kind of want Ethan Ralph to actually stick, if it's true that he went to rehab. I kind of want him to succeed because the world without Ethan Ralph may theoretically be a better place, but it will be less of a funnier place. Oh man, that sounds terrible. That's brutal.
It's a little dark there, buddy.
That's a clip right there. The world would be a better place without Ethan Ralph, but the world would be a funnier place. Would be a less of a funny place without Ethan Ralph. So, you know what I mean? There you go.
Well, I also, speaking of the world being a worse place, LinkedIn now does Reels, like Instagram Reels. Just wanted to let you know, if you're on LinkedIn, you've got some really entertaining things coming your way.
Can you imagine like performance updates in the form of Reels?
Can you just imagine like a million Indians doing performance reels?
There will be like one Indian talking about Julius Evola on LinkedIn. That'd be funny. Lord. Oh, apparently Nightmare Officer changed his name to Nightmare Friend.
That's a friendlier rebrand.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like Nightmare Friend.
Mm-hmm.
We have Default Friend. We got Nightmare Friend. We got
Smiling Friend.
Smiling Friend. Groiper Friend. We got
Friend.
Yeah. My Friend Hitler.
TV show. That was a good time.
Was that a Mishima book? My Friend. I shouldn't have said his name.
No, it's. I'm thinking of the unaired BBC sitcom from I want to say like the late 70s, early 80s. Heil, honey, I'm home.
Oh, God. That's so great. And this bird you cannot change, bitch. You know, it's very funny because Ethan Ralph, before he went to rehab, he's announcing his hiatus. He'll be back by Monday. He actually quoted Simple Man by Leonard Skinner in his address of leaving the illustrious kill stream to go to rehab. He fucking quote. It's like,
oh my. Oh my.
My
Internet Friend.
Yeah.
It was also a Mishima play. Okay,
we have Internet Friend. Yeah, where is Internet Friend tonight?
That's a good question. Where is Internet Friend?
Space. Probably.
Is there a Twitter space?
K-pop.
Is there Twitter? I'm now checking my Twitter spaces right now to see if they're there. No, Mike Pohl's hosting one. We're on the air. 1.2K listeners on Twitter. Thank you very much. I don't know if those numbers are accurate or not, but we thank our loyal mutuals and friends who retweet and support the show on X and Twitter. So I'm a fan.
I'm here for my gun news since Null had an emergency. What emergency did Null have? What's the latest Null news? I know he was covering. I know that Destiny Epstein threatened to sue Null for hosting the allegations against him in the chat logs from Discord. But it's like, go ahead, buddy. You know how many fucking people have tried to sue Joshua Connor Moon, including their alpha male? You know how many fucking governments have tried to sue Null?
Good luck.
Go ahead, man. I don't think Destiny has as much money as God, okay? Like, it's just...
Also, I don't think, like, his pay piggies are going to support him for very long in his lawsuit. Because it's just like, you've... Sexual... I will say this. For as much as is queered out and is, like, gay and fake and awful the left is on these issues, they seem to still have a relative moral gut punch reaction to sexual
Turning against
crimes.
women. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's at least some remnant of civility.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
well, when it came to Destiny platforming that PDF file for months on end, I mean, his audience was cool with that, but like,
oh, of course,
using women, bro.
You just do something to the women, bro. It's like the whole, it's that little weird PSA thing from Star Wars going, mate, really, mate. It's just like, I know, like, I am not, it's like all those, like, I think there was a sexual harassment thing from Canada a while ago where it was like some guy harassing like a fat, like, First Nations woman or whatever. And it's like, no one. I hate to reduce all things to sexual projection, but it really is just uggos that are, asking for some kind of attention. Like, touch me is what, and then it's just like, I'm good. I'm fine. No, I'm good. You can force her down my face as much as you want on TV. I'm good. No Zendaya. No, thanks. I'm good. I'm done. As much as people like to do the whole, like, oh, she's mid or whatever with like Sydney Sweeney or whatever, like, I'm sorry, I will take a gorgeous white ditzy mid, whatever you want to call her. I'll take it. Whatever makes my timeline more heterosexual, I'll take it. This place could be less gay. And they're like, well, sir, you follow the accounts. And I'm like, half the people I follow are news accounts, but sure. I hate seeing this discourse on my timeline. It's just like, can we just appreciate what little is left of good, attractive women on mainstream pop culture? The same thing with like that New Yorker article about the coronation ball. It's just like, let us just enjoy the fact that there are still some people out in this world that are straight on Maine. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm a simple man. I see people acting like they're straight and that they like women on the timeline. I press like. It's that simple.
If someone says Sweeney's mid, they're lying or blind. Let's be real. I don't know, man. Like, Sweeney is not mid, but at the same time,
she's an attractive woman, and I'm tired. I hate this, where they're like 6.5 mid of the day, or like mid Zoomer girl of the day. I'm like, I'm fucking done. I refuse to be gaslit about
You're
this.
generally attractive.
I will take whatever. They're pretty. I'm tired of this, and I get it. Maybe I'm just being felted or filtered. I don't care. And I'm not even one that follows these accounts. My mutuals retweet them because I have mutuals that are far more horny on Maine than I ever will be. But it's just like, I'm done. They're pretty. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm with Carlos, who notices things. Women are generally attractive and smell nice.
Yeah.
Like, if that makes me a simp, fuck you. I don't care.
Yeah. No, but there's some like deranged stuff. Like he's a great friend of mine, but like I remember Billy. He had this like tweet about Taylor Swift where he said like, look at the double stitching on her crotch. He like zoomed in.
We literally just had Brent Taylor reply, and that by presidential decree, I've ordered that every single MAGA incel that's part of this known as Frog Twitter will be offered an issued fresh hottie concubine for no less than 2 weeks of the girlfriend experience. Example 1 must be at least this hot. I'm sorry, that's just the Delicious Tacos state mandated girlfriend story where like Yang wins the White House, and you get like your state mandated GF, and if it works out for more than a year, like it works. And if it doesn't, you get like a payout or whatever. Like, that's probably the one Delicious Taco story I've read where I'm like, this is actually funny and this is really good.
Yeah. A lot of them are depressing.
A lot of them are depressing stories.
The egg dildo one, that's my favorite one. That was like really brutal though. That was brutal.
It's true. Yeah,
the double stitching to prevent camel toe. Like, if you're starting to like analyze Taylor Swift's double stitching, I don't know, man. Like, it's kind of.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I think I'm done.
That great, man. She ain't even that great. I don't know.
This is one of the few. Who's the one that says that like Billy, or was it Billy Pratt, or that said that like Taylor Swift exhibits an asexual energy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, man. Like, there's something about her that's kind of like, okay, is she attractive? Yeah, but it's like,
yeah, but not for me.
Yeah, not for me either. It's just like, who is like I can't even think of like a pop star that I find generally attractive in the last like. I'm sure I could think of one, but like, I don't know.
Mid 2000s Haley Williams.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't like Paramore, but I guess you mean, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Avril Lavigne.
Mid 2000s Avril Lavigne, sure.
No, I like current chunky Avril Lavigne.
What does she look like right now?
She's got a lot of MILF energy. Yeah, but Jennifer Connelly's not a pop star. She's
she doesn't look bad
Dua
now.
Lipa. Like, how do you pronounce your name? Dua Lipa.
Dua Lipa.
She's all right. Dua Lipa. Avril Lavigne
Albanian? What?
Yeah, she's Albanian.
Oh, she and I are the same age.
Yeah.
Can we do like mid Balkanoid of the day account and like just post her half the time? That'd be funny.
90s Alanis Morissette.
It's like rain, Gio. It's like rain.
What about Lizzo? Apparently, well, Lizzo lost weight though.
No, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. Well, like, I don't know.
I don't care that she's lost weight. That's I'm good. No thanks. That's like psychic damage that you've inflicted upon me. I'm good.
Early pop star Miley Cyrus was very girl next door. Shame about her being a disgusting degenerate. Well, yeah, I guess. But no, I agree with Nudge Luna. Connelly looks good now. I like current Jennifer Connelly.
Current?
Yeah. She's got huge MILF energy.
I think you just have a thing for older women.
Yeah.
I guess that's I think that's really all I can boil this down to is
there was this indie film where Jennifer Connelly was like a heroin addict and she was like busting into like these like council flats, and I think there was a few. She looked pretty good in it, you know.
Yeah, I think I'm okay. Younger Jennifer Connelly, please. But I guess that's just because I'm biased. I'm not hag maxing.
What's your name? Tyler. Liv Tyler.
Liv Tyler. Now I'm just Googling this shit. She's 47 years old. Why are you doing this to me?
Look at the Milk Truck Driver. Gio likes Jewish women when they get old and their boobs shrink and they're no longer attractive.
I'm gonna just. I need like I need a cigarette. This is awful. This is awful.
Isn't she half Irish though?
Why are you doing? No, Gio. Okay, we're going to the super chats. We're ending this before we call out over women. I refuse. Gentlemen, ladies, it has been lovely. Gio is calling out for his middle-aged woman of MILF of the week. We can do this on the Cole Report where we just Gio ranks every like mid-40s, 90s actress that he finds attractive. The next episode of the Cole Report will be Gio Panichetti. He'll be putting up a tier list of mids that are 45 and older that were popular 40 years ago. That's what's going to happen. And so be sure to stay tuned because Academic Asian is rebranded. He's now AA. He's not Roland Rat. That just means Gio gets to inherit the Who Would You Do list and the contest and the polls. And you'll see it on the next episode of the Cole Report, where Gio gets to be as horny as he wants. We pay it for $5 a month.
Jewish MILFs or Mediterranean Kryptonite, E-Girl of the Week podcast. We could do an E-Girl of the Week podcast.
I would rather die.
Hey, apparently, which E-Girl is back? Apparently that Rachel girl is back. The one that was at that protest.
I don't know who any of these women are, Gio. I block 99% of all women on Twitter.com.
When's Poison Berry gonna come back? I want Poison Berry back. She was pretty good. She was like the right wing E-Girl. Like she was the it girl of the right wing for like a few months back, a few years ago. You guys remember Poison Berry? Poison Berry was great. She like just shredded all these other E-Girls. And Zinni's pulling up her weight.
How long, oh Lord? How long?
Zinni's been posting hardcore against the other E-Girls. It's been very fun. But Zinni's an Indian woman, though.
No E-Girls.
Never. No girls ever.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, man.
Links in the bio, Groiper, me posting every Substack essay on Twitter.com.
Gio is fearless. Yeah. I like Boysenberry. She was a great poster. Like, oh man, Hassler's getting really. Who's worse, FDR or Churchill?
Oh, FDR.
FDR. Yeah.
I can't hate Churchill as much as I hate my former president. Anne Hathaway has always been pretty. I would agree with that. Anne Hathaway has aged very gracefully.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I like Anne Hathaway. She's very pretty.
I wish Melanie Mack wasn't a grifter, was 15 years younger.
Listen, I'm taken. I'm not going to have an opinion on this e-girl nonsense. I'm good. I'm happily taken. I'm fine. And here we go. What a forward young man you are. So true.
Gabriel Anwar was good.
Just let me die.
No, but Melanie Mack's been going on this like anti like weirdo. She's still very Cooper. Schick has gotten old. Yeah, I agree. I think Melanie Mack just needs to find a good man, that isn't like all these other fucking simps that she surrounds herself with. So, you know what I mean? Like
Gio when there's a 47-year-old Hollywood A-list celebrity.
Is Syrian girl an e-girl? Yes. Yes, of course. She has those DSLs. Sarah Jessica Parker, nose job griper. I never liked Sarah Jessica Parker. I don't know. She's kind of...
Gio has gone insane.
I don't know. Syrian girl looks attractive. She's kind of annoying, though. I don't know about Syrian girl. She's already...
I think she should go back to where she came from.
Yeah. Wow. What, Australia?
Okay, sure. Australia.
No, Syria. No, yes. Oh, man. No. Melanie Mack versus Amy Therese. Go.
This might come as a shock to some viewers, but I think everyone involved in this story should, and you know the rest. I'll let the reader finish the sentence.
Okay, listen to the chat before we get to super chats. Press 1 for Amy Therese. Press 2 for Melanie Mack.
And press 3 to send me off into that sweet abyss of being free of this misery.
So you people are pressing 2. 1 0.
I'm with the zeros on here.
Charlie Mackey. 3.
Charlie Mackey is. They're wishing to send me off. See, look at this. Exactly. I'm too old for this.
I'm too old.
Suicide is for Optimus. What a great name. What a great name.
3,000 times.
You heard the men.
Melanie Mack or Amy Therese. Go. Press 1 for Amy Therese. Press 2 for Melanie Mack.
Gio.
I'm
going to find you.
All right. Well, you know what's funny? I think
I'm going to call ice on you, Gio.
I don't know who Amy Therese is.
You don't need to know. It's okay.
Well, you know what's
I need a
funny
super chat. I really do need to do that. I need to do what Mr. D does.
I'm sorry to go there, but you're a spinster.
I love that. I love this. This is my favorite screenshot. I have a screenshot of Syrian girl and Amy Therese telling each other to go back to their home countries. Their home countries share a border.
That's so good.
That's a great. It's a great screen cap. It's a fantastic
well, technically,
one. I
Amy
also
Therese
have it
was
saved.
born in Australia. She is half Bogan, so.
Well, let me get out of here.
Anyways, okay, so before we go to super chats, I just figured that we had to call out a bit because we were.
No, we didn't need to call out. That was the nice part about the show is we don't have to. I don't have to turn into the 30-year-old caller who's trying to relive the glory days of 2015. It's a different time.
Yeah.
It's a different era. It's okay. We don't have to call on and call off. There needs to be no Twitter Mr. Miyagi telling you that it's okay to post a little coal. It's fine. It's over. It's done. The battle is only just beginning, and we have enough coal to shovel as it is, so this engine can push forward on the train tracks before I'm slid off this mortal coil of online existence. Gio, no more coal. Save it for the report. Shovel it into the engine of the content creation machine that you are known to be. And please, for the love of God, God, while as often as I play as the straight man, for once we can bring this to an end with a little bit of dignity before I, too, seek Canadian healthcare. And with that, we will finally answer the wonderful audience questions that paid their hard-earned money to make it happen.
Super chats.
Thank you.
We were shooting pearls the whole stream.
Why?
No, this comes from Ghost, by the way, from TCR.
Why?
I'm shooting pearls here. I'm shooting pearls. Anyways.
The money is made off my suffering. Good Lord. I need to change the dynamic of the show.
FBI informant need more coal.
We truly need more coal. But with that being said, if you would love to use the lovely affiliate link that is on there as well as in the description, you too can enjoy the wonderful world of Alp nicotine pouches. Warning, this product contains nicotine. It's an addictive chemical. But for a 5-pack for $24.95, you too can enjoy and avoid all of the wonderful political charging of Zyn. Link is in the description. And again, I think it's kind of cool that we have this affiliate link. But if you're not of tobacco type, of course, no pressure. And with that, we'll get on to the super chats. I will start with the ones on Entropy first. The link is the pinned comment in the chat. It takes a smaller cut than YouTube does, 15 compared to 30, and we will continue. So, and if you use my affiliate link, you get 10% off your order. So enjoy. So we will go. We'll start from the very beginning. Meyer Hobbs says, "Hi Gio, just wanted to check if you've talked about my proposal with Prude. If you have, and he's not interested, how much do you want to? How much do you want for doing it solo?"
Oh yeah, that anime series. I'll talk it over with Prude.
I have no idea, but that's good to know. So thanks for letting me know, Gio. Appreciate it.
Fuck, I'm sorry. I've been occupied this week.
Look, yeah. Don't you love it when Gio never replies to his messages or his DMs? I'm almost willing to pay an Indian on Fiverr to constantly harass Gio every day with a DoorDash appointment at pizzas so that Gio will answer his emails, DMs, and messages. Press 1 if you want me to send an Indian to Gio's house to ensure he answers his emails. Press 2 that I send someone from a different country like Ukraine to send him a message about changing his emails. Let's do it. So the next
member is going to send me a message to change.
It's so over for you. It's so over. The next super chat comes from our loyal supporter of the show, Seneca. He says, Missouri lore. Auguste Chateau. The Chateau was one of the founders of St. Louis. He and Pierre Leclerc Leguest would go on and build St. Louis from small trading post to the gateway to the west. Chateau would go on to be mayor, but when he was building the city of St. Louis, he was only 13 to 16 years old. Insane. Absolutely insane. Jay Ford says, Sneed, exciting things are happening, lads. God has blessed me more than I can deserve. Well, congratulations, Jay Ford. I hope that whatever has happened in your life continues to bless you and bode well for you. Our good friend Scribe says, Taylor Swift, Margot Robbie, and Jennifer Aniston are safe hot. If you were asked a board of directors to design a, quote, hot woman, that's who you'd get. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's also if it's safe enough for Barack Obama, it's safe enough for you.
There's a lot of people in the chat that want, to send at 2 a.m. on a moped, an Indian man will give you pizza.
Yeah, so, and whatever causes you to what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever causes you to answer your DMs and emails more efficiently. I won't have people bugging me all the time. They're like, hey, can you talk to Gio? Can you talk to Gio? And I'm like, guy, you don't understand. He barely responds to my messages, and I'm his co-host. What makes you think that he's going to reply to you?
You even posted the other day on the TL, like, didn't read his messages award.
It's true. It's true. Didn't read DMs award.
Talk about what was it called? Commentary Magazine article.
Oh, the critic. The critic. That's okay. I don't think we needed to talk about the party.
Yeah.
So we're good. Continuing on. Global Village Coffee Chud. I like this name already.
I love
fantastic. He says, greetings, gents. First time super chatter, long time lurker. I made some DA related OC and posted it on Twitter, tagging you both. Hope you like it. Take it as a modest yet sincere thank you for all the insight and laughs shared. Well, if you're still listening, Mr. Coffee Chud, can you tell me your @ on Twitter so I know it was like from you? I guess I'm gonna scroll through my mentions now to see if I can find it.
His name's referring to the Global Coffee Village aesthetic from the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
That's a deep geocell cut right there.
That's how you know you've got friends and shooters. Like that's
I got tons of
you gotta enjoy that.
We got Scott Stevens Groiper.
We have a lot of actually like good. We got shooters. We've got fans. But nevertheless, if I answered my DMs, I would be sad and chronically online. Oh boy, do I hate to break it to you. Aryan Blonde wrote, what a great Twitter @name. I'm sorry, that's really good. I have to appreciate that.
Aryan Blonde.
I am a fan, and I'm now going to go look for make sure I find this on my
Coffee Village chat. And his avatars of the Global Coffee House aesthetic. Fuck.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Oh, I like this. This is really nice.
Well,
this is from yesterday. Although I have to. This is good. I want to share this on screen. I quite like this one. This is pretty good. Share screen. I asked DeepSeek to generate an image based on the 115th Digital Archipelago episode, and this was the result. Truly disturbing stuff. I'm a fan. I mean, this is awful.
Be kidding me, man.
This is good.
Incredible.
This is great. I like this.
This is incredible. They flat design. That's gonna cover my book. I think. It's incredible. He's got Ancient Giga Chad, Trudeau.
Oh, I'm retweeting this right now. This is so good. That's so good. I'm a big fan.
Painting, hockey.
This is so good. This is totally accurate.
I'm going to use this.
This is great. I like this. The shitty kidneys on the side. The frog. I have the Frog and Toad T-shirt, by the way. This is really good. Corporate Memphis Archipelago. This is so good. I like this a lot.
It's incredible. This is gonna be like a super fan knows all this.
This is probably the best. I mean, this is one of the best ones we've ever had. This one's really good. I might use this for the show. I really like this. Yeah, he's got dick fingers. Look at the lines.
Oh my god!
This is so good. This is so good. Thank you so much. I'm really that one's really good.
I love when you got the hockey stick in the Ancient Giga Chad.
Oh, it's so good. Half
the show is just like remembering lore.
That's so good. I'm gonna share that in the chat now, or in the GCs I'm in. That's so good.
Yeah. I never thought flat design Gio would actually look amazing.
That's impressive. I really have no words. That's really good.
Incredible. I'm gonna use that.
I'm gonna definitely have to use that for something. I'm gonna go copy that link and share that to some GCs I'm in, because that's really, really good. Oh my.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's really good.
My girlfriend after that.
I have to go share that image and explain. Well, yeah. Feel free to use it however you like. Oh, definitely will. So I'll continue on with the super chats real quick. Charlie Mackey says, "Good evening. I hope you're both doing well. The couple behind Cultist Simulator and the Book of Hours is making a CRPG. Oh, interesting. Whoa. Are either of you fans of RPGs, and what kind of stories, if any, do you think work well and communicate? Any favorites in the genre?" I am a big fan of Arcanum, if anyone remembers that one from the early 2000s. And then Arcanum and the original 2 Fallout games are the ones I've liked. I own Planescape, but I've also bought it because everyone tells me to play it, but I've never actually done it. But I quite like the world of Arcanum, and I wish there was more RPGs that focused on a steampunk versus magic industrial revolution setting. Like it's really good. I quite like it. So I hope that answers your question, Charlie. I'm a big fan. It's really good. Need an Arcanum too. It's so true. Just play Morrowind with 88 mods, but Morrowind's great. I like Morrowind. I have a lot of hours in Morrowind as well.
Howard's kid. You know that Venom meme with Morrowind?
The what?
There's like a Venom meme with Morrowind.
Mm.
It's like, y'all cowards don't even. It's like some drug in Morrowind. I don't know.
You mean skooma?
Yeah. Y'all cowards don't even do skooma. Yeah.
There you go.
Y'all cowards don't even do crack. Didn't he go to jail for like kidnapping a woman or something?
I don't know. I don't know. Let that out, but onto the YouTube super chats, and we'll try.
Sorry,
and get
Viper,
out of here.
Viper, not Van. Viper, Viper.
Well, traveling at night is the Cold War with esoteric magic, so maybe that has an element from Arcanum. Well, I've never heard of traveling at night. I'm gonna have to go look into that one. Yeah, y'all dastardly in-laws don't even drink skooma. So true. That's a great Morrowind slur. Hugo Gloss with the lovely 50 Mexican pesos. Thank you very much, good sir. He says, I've been enjoying the New York Times podcast lately. The interview looks so discombobulated still, although it enjoys high production values. Well, you got to be high off your own supply. It better be good.
Yeah,
I do sincerely think in a couple of weeks, the legal resistance to the Trump administration will be a lot stronger.
Oh yeah.
Because again, we're only 11 days in to this administration. Things will be different in due time. I genuinely believe it. Willie McDuff just sends $9.99. Thank you, Willie. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Joshua Beebe says, we must buy property and pay it off to pass down to future generations. Families need to develop property without mortgages. Risk of home loss is limiting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You got to be able to pass something down to your kids. End of discussion.
This is why inheritance tax is evil.
I agree. I truly awful stuff.
Every time I see someone talk about the inheritance tax, they're just the most evil fucking scum communists I've ever seen. They're like, we need 100% inheritance tax. Like, they don't know that like money isn't just something that sits around and does nothing. That's like a zero sum. Like it really is sort of like 15-year-old discovering Kropotkin type of deal. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, just something about it so inherently evil. Like even like someone like Joe Rogan could like spiritually intuit that inheritance tax is fucked up and evil. That was a great clip. That was one of the few good Rogan clips. Yeah.
Son of Haster
sells.
Son of Haster says, driving home in a snowstorm. Glad to have the stream to listen to, gents. Well, please drive safe.
Drive safely, man.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I know what that's like, bro.
Driving in the snow is not fun.
Yeah. I know what that and like whiteout rain is not fun.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of that lately. A lot of bad rain.
Few times driving home from my gym where I'm like, oh god, like, yeah.
This might be it, chats. This might be it. Let's see here. Oh, sorry, wrong tab. And then let's see. ML Wiz, $10. This is just for the war chest. Well, thank you, Mr. ML Wiz. The war chest is greatly appreciated. That continues to pay for all the subscriptions I use to keep this thing running. Actually, I might stop using StreamYard. I might stop using StreamYard, but I'll work on that in the future. And then Willie McDuff, again, for $9.99 says, just thanks, guys. Well, again, thank you, Willie. This show would not exist without the lovely viewers like you, the super chatters like you that keep this thing going, both on patreon.com/GiantArtProductions or on subscribestar.com/The Prudentialist. Your ongoing continued financial support allows us to do what we do. And as a guy who does this as a side gig on top of the other two jobs that I do, I'm incredibly grateful for it. And for Gio, being the lovable and philosophical, sensitive young man that he is, who does this as a full-time job, he also appreciates it as well, even if he doesn't tell you enough. He's thankful.
Well, if you guys want me to open a subscribe star too, if you don't want to give to Patreon or Substack, let me know. I'll do that. It's a lot to set up, but with all the archive.
Yeah.
Mr. Chris Ostler wants to know, have you guys seen the movie Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down?
I have not.
I have not. What is it about?
I don't know.
Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down.
I guess I'm gonna have to go look that one up after the show.
I still have a bunch of movie reviews to do. I'm actually currently when I'm in the next few days, I'll be recording the movie Naked. Then I have to watch Sexy Beast. I don't know what I'm going to say for 2001 because like everyone's talked about 2001 to death, but I guess like I can go into my favorite parts of 2001. But then I have to watch Sexy Beast, and then I have to finally pull a plug on the Bell Jar because like the Bell Jar like in the middle does kind of a slog to read because like I've heard a lot of these arguments articulated better by people like Andrea Dworkin. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I prefer to read Irigiri, but I will, I do like Sylvia Plath's poetry. I just think that she wasn't meant to be a long form fiction writer. She was meant to be a poetess. So, well, I mean, I'll get into that. I hope I do a fair job with reviewing the Bell Jar. I might bring in an e-girl to review the Bell Jar with me, if anyone's interested. So
just don't sit down on it.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking like 2 seconds to get that.
You know, that guy said, like, okay, there was the jar guy, but there was the guy that may have started the Bosnian War by doing that.
I'm good.
Count Dankula has a video on it where he claimed that Bosnians shoved a jar up his what.
Oh, well, you know.
But anyways,
goodness gracious.
That was a Count Dankula video.
I need to watch. I guess I should. I don't watch a lot of his stuff, to be honest. I haven't yet. But yeah, don't give her your Italian sausage. That's true. No. Don't do that. You can't do that.
So we'll be back with Gen reviews next week, hopefully, and Prude, I believe, has an essay coming out.
I have a video essay that'll premiere probably on Thursday. I will be live this Monday with Dimes. We will be doing another episode of Do You Even Read? And Dimes and I are covering Ivan Alexandrovich Ilin's 1925 book on resistance to evil by force. We plan to cover the whole book in one episode, just like we did with Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility. I have an essay out on Substack about the writings of Theodore Judson and his essay about, or his blog post about, the human desire to predict the future and why we put so much attraction and focus on that. I'm going to have another... the blog post or the author?
The blog post.
Oh, well, it's on my Substack. You can go read that if you want. Theodore Judson, absolutely. My favorite baby boomer author. And then I have an article out today for the Old Glory Club talking about Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility and why it's important for us to understand their sort of genocidal intentions. I have another essay in the works that should also be out by Thursday as well, if not Friday, on the issue of ChatGPT, generated executive orders and what that means for governance going forward. And then, we'll be live next Tuesday, Lord willing.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want to do a Shrek video. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to have that. Don't put that Dave the Distributist juju on me. No, I don't want to.
Give us a lot of money.
I don't want to do a Shrek video.
There was so much lore behind Shrek, like so many memes. Don't stop. I remember Common Filth would use, they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming. I remember Common Filth used to do that. Lol, Dave never came through, Prude. Let's go. How can we even talk about Shrek? I just don't understand.
That's a good point. It's a great question. We'll never find out.
But I did it for Shrek.
We'll never find out, will we? We'll never know.
That was a great
Shrek over Chud. That's true.
Shrek is love. Shrek is life.
I don't know if Dave Green has read that, Chris. I don't know. That's a good question. I'll ask him in person in a couple of months. But Gio will be live next week. Yes, Tuesday. Yep. We're back to our regular schedule. It's ogre. It's so ogre. It's
so ogre now.
Do you want to live watch Shrek on Drive Time Movie Night? Well, that's possible. There you go.
We could do that.
Gio could do that.
I watched this lesbian sci-fi film on Drive Time Movie Night. It was pretty good. It was like a body...
Only Gio would say this. Only Gio would be like, yeah, that lesbian sci-fi is pretty good.
Planet of lesbians with phallic vegetation everywhere.
Phallic vegetation, phallic rockets, lesbians. What a great time. Again, thank you so much for the super chats, because this one ain't getting monetized, everyone, ladies and gents. But arrived home safe. Thanks for the concerns. Yeah, it's great. Beautiful. That's great. That's true. We're glad that you're home. So yeah, there you go. It's absolute. This is an absolute GeoCell classic. We're talking about lesbians. We're talking about hags. We're talking about mid-40s celebrities. It's truly a Geo episode. That's how this works. Every time that he's on when he's on my channel, it's like the Gio sell delight, and then when I'm on his channel, it's like I'm here to ruin your day. It's I think that's the true dynamic is that Gio makes me suffer on my channel, and I make him suffer on his. Did we ever talk about Paglia? Yes, we did. We did a whole episode on one of her books.
We did 2 episodes.
Oh yeah, we did actually. We've done 2 episodes on Paglia. I hope you're happy.
But he means in the Drive Time movie hour. Yeah, actually, me and Gabe ended up talking about Paglia in that one.
Oh,
sorry, me and Mike and Paul. I don't think Gabe was there.
Oh man. Oh my. Oh me, oh my. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you all next week.
God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet. And Sofa.
See you, gents.